Seem like everybody watch the House of Consciousness. Got them tuning in here in the States to every continent. You got your holy book, your references and documents. Then hit your brother's side and get it cracking if you're confident. Sign at the TV, it don't get no more reality. It's helping us stay mindful of the struggle in totality. Humble yourself and let the commentary resonate. Living in these times, this here is sure to help you elevate.
In a new zone. Hope the dialogue ain't too strong. Y'all know that we've been waiting too long.
And ever since I stepped into this paradigm, most of the time all I got is building on my
TV
mind.
is a black throne, where kings and queens come get their facts on. Just be prepared to have your mind blown.
And ever since I stepped into this paradigm, most of the time all I got is freedom on my mind. For real, for real.
Peace and Black Power family, we are here to really settle the score, settle the differences between my brother Dr. Reggie and my brother Jabari Osaze. This has been an ongoing thing for the past month now with our brother Dr. Reggie. And so what we would like to do is bring both of these two great giants and warriors and scholars together to have them settle their disagreements on video to bring to the people for information. This is just a presentation for y'all to learn and get something out of this. Without any further ado, I bring to you our beloved brother, Dr. Reggie.
Peace, family. I am so happy again to be here at the Center for the Restoration of Ma'at and the Shrine of Ma'at and to do this presentation. There are a lot of feelings involved in it, but I think at the end of the presentations, I think that we'll be all right. So, and you'll find out what the basis of my how intellectual conversation is. Religion destroyed ancient Kemet. We need the principles and sciences, but not the religion for our liberation. Red, black, and green. Part one of my presentation. I'm going to try to move it quickly because I do have a part two and we'll get to it. Religion is proven to be a great cause of friction between humans. This conversation is not new. I'm not the author. The focus of the problems relating to what we call Kemetic spirituality or religiousing Kemet began over 35 years ago with Dr. Joseph Benjo and Dr. John Henry Clark speaking directly on the subject to and about those religiousing this newfound information coming from the Nile Valley. I am simply informing a new generation of their instructions. Some people feel that I should not, but I have other people who are speaking now about the instructions that they heard. So I am a messenger. My argument theses, part one, sovereignty came first, then ancient Kemetic religion. Then priests began to exploit the system and ultimately betrayed their sovereigns. This was a major contributor to the destruction of Kemet. Said another way, the king came first, then the priesthood. However, the priesthood steadily gained power over land, people, and resources, competing with the nation's sovereignty. In addition, the priests used the human fragility of a need for an afterlife to manipulate the people and then usurp the power of the sovereign of Kemet, causing the Nasut Bidi or even or being even more traitorous, usurped the power of the Sa-Ra, the son of Re. This sent Kemet into a decline that they would never ever recover for. My point is in Kemet. Kemet wasn't overthrown by peasants or farmers. Kemet was overthrown internally by the priesthood manipulating religion. That is my point. It has some interesting bearings to today. People are taking things personally, but I admit I do have some concerns. But before I go on, this is not attack. It never was an attack to Brother Jabari and Sister Anika. I am not ruining what they're doing. Actually, at the end of the day, I think it will be helpful and better for our community. They are two great people by themselves, great people in love, great people in our community. If I don't mention you in a video, that's because I really want to say something, but I don't really want to bring you into it. And every time I mention your name, people say that I am talking about you shadily. No, I want to talk about the topic, but not talk about the individual, because there's always good people doing the work, and then there's other people. And then there's other people who are just evil, that they call and they exacerbate and they say, he's talking about you. I'm here to say, this is my subject. After I prove religion destroy ancient Kemet, I will use it to talk about the many concerns that I've spoken about in my talks. I have maybe some clips of what the elders say. I think some of you are seeing some of the conversations of other people besides Brother Reggie. So I've released a video of Baba Tahuti. I released a video of Infidisi Juhudimas. I have a video of Dr. Leonard Jeffries that I have in part, and I'll release later. Because Dr. Leonard Jeffries is going to talk about the esteemed elders. Now, so if Kemet was destroyed by religion, we need to be cautious so that we don't make the same foolish mistakes. Now, the takeaways. Many are missing the core elements on how the ancient Kemetu viewed their practice or their purpose of their practice. 2, if one is going to practice a system of our people, shouldn't we strive to practice it as authentic as possible? Why are we so quick to religiousize our knowledge? 3, constructive criticism only threatens those who want to remain complacent. As expected, it is not about what I am challenging. It is about what it really is about. Challenging the thing that they represent, and they personalize it. So sorry, I was typing quick. I put that slide in later. Now, let's get through this. Ancient cult religions, cosmologies chart. This is a chart that I constructed. In the beginning, the earliest civilization that we can see in that area is Nabta-Playa. Nabta-Playa is the earliest aspect of the civilization in that region that we have artifacts of. After that, we see the Hor cult or the Seth cult, pre-dynastic. We see Nekem, Dep, and P. We see Nis cosmology, Canoe cosmology, Mut, Heru, Hotep, Dinar, Sut, prayer, pre-dynastic, Kemenu cosmology, Raharati, Ma'at, Tahuti, Old Kingdom, Manefa cosmology. All of the cosmologies, there's an interruption with the Hyksos. They co-opt the Kemetic religion. They take the religion by force. Then there is, after that, the period of Tepesep, the correct method. And you see them talking about that is how they actually did medicine, built the pyramids. And it goes on to the emergence of the Amun cult, and then all the other books that we know of, the Book of Two Ways, Paradis Maru, the Code of Aden, the Amduit, all of the great books. But I do want to say is, almost all of this happened before the 18th dynasty. In the 18th dynasty, there was a change. Prior to that, the systems, educational systems, information systems worked together. They had some difficulties, but they worked. It wasn't the mass murder. It wasn't the killing. It wasn't the wars on religion. Something happened in the 18th dynasty. So then you have the Heavenly Cow, the Book of Heavenly Cow, the Amduit, the Book of Gates. And then you have the Amun-Ra priests. And then you have them co-opting, the Amun-Ra priests begin to co-opt these sacred ideas of ancient Kemet under the Amun-Ra after Akhenaten is defeated. And then later on, you have the Amun-Ra priest kings. They challenged the leadership of Kemet. They destroy the sovereignty, and then you have the Libyans, the Nubians come in to help the Assyrians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Ptolemies, the Romans, the Arabs. The majority of Kemetic cosmology, political structure, science, astronomy, architecture, science, medical, mathematics, moral, ethical texts, divine principles were all created before the 18th dynasty. The Amun cult basically took over the whole system, and that became the situation that brought down Kemet. So ancient Kemet structure was first the king. It was based on the king. The king was the mediator between the human being and the god, or the netters, or the principles, the high principles. It was the king. And the priests simply were subjects of the king, simply did his bidding, did rituals and services to support the king in this life, in the afterlife. But they were subjects of the king. This structure was largely in place until a traitorous group of priesthood in the 18th dynasty, and they would destroy the sovereignty by usurping and challenging it. And these are the lessons that we talk about when Dr. Ben cautions us, and and the rest of our sages caution us. So, bloody conflicts in Kemet were inspired by religion in Kemet. The Amun priesthood versus Tutmosis IV, Amenetet III, Amun-Ra priesthood versus Akhenaten, Amun-Ra priesthood and the mistress murders of Nefertiti, Neferuneferutin, Semek-Kari, Tut, Ankhesenamun, the death of Ai, where he might have been responsible for the death of Tutankhamun, but ultimately then the revolution of Horemheb. In this situation, this was bloody conflicts inspired by religion in Kemet, and then after this, it just wouldn't stop. Now, all the while, Ma'at existed, but you have a group of traitorous priests now consuming resources, don't want to give it up, and they become controllers of Ma'at. In this chart is basically how, in fact, these things move through history. So I talk about science and quantum physics and the creation of the galaxies and stuff. The ancient Kemetu, they put that into their cosmologies. The Ramesh, who is the humankind created in Africa through evolution, spreads, civilization arises, and the Nile Valley becomes classical. Kingship is established in Kemet. Shimshal-Hor defeats Shimshal-Set, the two kings. And then in these pieces, I won't read for all the part of the time, you see at some point the Amun priest, the priesthood, begins to, in fact, gain more strength all the way down to the 18th dynasty, and ultimately you're going to see the Ramesses kings and the Amun priest controlling huge riches. This is our general caution about religion. And this by the priest and the great king, temple palace relationships in the Persian Empire, the power of the Amun priesthood from the Harish papyrus. You see that in this writing that is a secondary source of something translated, that the huge resources that the priesthood had, 150 men and their families, high-ranking ritualists and administrators, recorded 81,322 people in their service, huge amounts of land, resources, etc., etc. The Amun priesthood gains this, but not the kingdom, not the king. The people are basically, in this particular period, basically in the middle between having something and starving. And the Amun priesthood is so important that they are controlling the coronation of the kings. And then they do something very interesting, which I'll talk about. They democratize the Peret Imheru and the religious books so that ordinary citizens can get an afterlife. Normally before that, it was the king that would give you the afterlife in the Hotep Dinar Sut, but the Amun-Ra priesthood came up with the concept out of their own minds that, in fact, that man can get an afterlife by doing good deeds, but those deeds weren't necessarily good. they were manipulated by the priesthood. So while this is happening, there are good scientists who are priests. They begin to leave Kemet and diffuse. So then you have all of these different types of scripts emerging. People are leaving Kemet as this chaos is happening. This chaos is because of religion, family. It's because of a priesthood that you can't talk to, family. And I'm in a situation with some family members of mine, but that's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about what happened in ancient Kemet, to bring it down. So let me move quickly. So then we have the weakening of pharaonic power. This is from a book called Chronologies of Ancient Egypt. I get to
Chronicle of the Pharaohs.
Chronicle of the Pharaohs. Thank you. And so you're going to see in the third intermediate period, you're going to see the Amun priesthood rise and challenge the throne of Kemet and throw Kemet into an intermediate period, and this is because of religion. So in this thing, it says 2,000 years after inception, ancient civilizations began to slide down after achieving the giddy heights of the Old, Middle, and New Kingdom. No longer was Egypt in the eyes of the ancient world an isolated Shangri-La or land of the lotus eaters. No longer were her pharaohs the god kings manifest on earth as in better times. Economically, around 1000 BC, the country was virtually bankrupt. Outside influences became more evident as other ancient civilizations, Assyrians, Persians, followed Macedonians, Greeks, etc., into basically ancient Kemet, and it was the Amun-Ra priesthood that is responsible for this. Okay, so then over here you have this period where Herihor is a Amun priest, and he basically usurps the throne of I think Piank, or and when he usurps the throne, he is an Amun-Ra priest that kind of co-regents the throne of Kemet, a priest now, how can I say, co-regents. And then Kemet becomes divided because one side the king takes, the other side ultimately at the end of the day Nubia takes the other side. And so Kemet is in chaos because of this religious inclusion. But Ma'at still exists. Spirituality, if one wants to call it, exists. Science exists. But the Amun-Ra priests are manipulating all of this. So it's Ramesses the 11th. He is the priest. He is the king that I think Herihor actually begins this kind of co-regencies. And
Ramses 9.
Ramses 9. So then what happens? So you have, even though you have great Ramesses Narsuts, you have the Narsuts being challenged by the Amun priesthood.
You gotta pay attention. He's not.
No. Okay. So it becomes so the Amun priests fell. Then comes the Libyan invaders. The Libyan invaders come, the 22nd dynasty. The 23rd dynasty is, how can I say, now ruled not by high priests, but its own very own line of pharaohs, the 23rd dynasty. So then you have an invader coming in from Libyan origins, and being a king, meaning the priesthood now, the dirty priesthood at that time is making them
The dirty priesthood?
yeah, like the dirty Moors, the dirty priesthood is making them leaders, right? And then this will come, I'm not talking about all priests, because some of them have left Kemet, right? Then you have it all the way up to the 24th dynasty, where you have Tafkanek comes, and then you have the Amun Ra priest and the kings that had already separated because of this earlier. They created their own type of ecology with Amun Ra inside Nubia, mixed with the more ancient material. Pianki comes and retakes it from these the dirty priest. Okay? So Amun Ra priest traitorous corroborations with invaders. So you have what I am saying, because it seems like I hear some noise, that Pianki, Taharka, Shabaka come to take Kemet from people who are not following the law. And I'm going to bear that out. Okay, so here's exactly what we're talking about. Divine intervention and surrender of Nimrod, the Pianki Stella. So Pianki comes and he's challenging the rulers of Kemet, the dirty rulers of Kemet, right? Who were manipulated into position or took the position, usurped the throne. Pianki's coming back, and this is what he says to him. He says to them, Pianki, beloved of Amun, said that you will die, your mother. Who is it who guides you? Who is it who guides you? Who is it who guides you then? Who is it who guides you? You have abandoned the proper way of life. Is it indeed as arrows that heaven rains? Is it that I will? Southerners bow down and northerners say, place us in your shade. What he is trying to say, or what he is saying, is that he's asking those people who control the kingship, who is it that guides you? Now, most of you know Pianki and then Shabaka. Shabaka, what he does is now he comes into power, and that he restores Kemet. Now, while this is happening, after this is happening, I want to give you a list of what the dirty priest of ancient Kemet did. And this is what happens when religious systems and priesthood go unchecked. Here's a cartouche of Darius the Great. He invades Kemet. Now, one thing is to invade and subjugate, but the other thing is for the culture, the priesthood, the religious to come to you and give you authority. And that's in fact what they did. So here's his name in the Medu Neter, right? For Darius, right? Here is Alexander the Great, the priest now. He has the crowns. You see this? The Kau. He's given the title of kingship. Who is doing this? The Amun Ra priests want to retain power, so they will even go and deal with the enemy. Then you over here have, okay, so this is the same thing. This is Alexander, right? This is Alexander. So you see the Meta Neter. So there you go. This was an actual written document where translated, where one of these priests, a dirty priest, right, now makes the Persian king the pharaohs. So when the Persians conquered Egypt, the king became pharaoh. High priest of the Setiac dynasty, main co-center in Sais, handed over to his Persian masters full pharaonic titulary. On his autographical stele, Uja Horisner states, I composed the canvases, titulary, to wit his name of the king of Upper and Lower Kemet, Meshereti Re, offspring of Re. A dirty priest is turning over the sovereignty. A priest is doing that. Now, this is something for people to look at as the power of what the priests do. We can see it later when you have the Pope, and you have France, and you have Spain, and you have Portugal, you have Britain. You can see what is happening. Religion has caused this. So this is an actual primary document that was translated. Sorry about my error. Here's Ptolemy. Here is Ptolemy. We know this because of the deciphering of the Medu Neter. But Ptolemy he don't know how to speak ancient Medu Neter. Ptolemy. Okay. But the dirty priest or in fact making him the Norsut bitchy. Not the people. It's different if you're a ruler. Some people say you beat me, rule. But here you have people in control of the afterlife and Ma'at, what people call spirituality, science, in control. Oh, Caesar, the dirty priest, has done it again, right? So he is over here giving. Here's Caesar right here. This is Caesar, right? Kaisr, Caesar, right? He is giving life. He is giving eternity of the land. Eternity of the land. The dirty priests are given to him. And this is Ptah in his place, right? The dirty priests are doing that. So
I don't get it, Reggie. So you're saying who wrote that right there?
The dirty priest.
And who are they?
These are priests of Kemet.
Right.
Not the regular people. Not soldiers.
So they came in later on and changed stuff up, you're saying?
They came in and usurped the authority of the...
So right now, today, that's on the walls of Kemet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can find each of these.
That one's in the Metropolitan Museum.
Yeah, you can find each of them.
But there's some major issues. I'll
So they made mommy... Okay, so in this particular... Of course, a priest would make some adjustments, right? The fact of the matter is, the regular citizens, the military is not doing this. I have shown where a particular priest actually did that. This is what religion does. So in this case,
which particular priest?
Huh?
Which particular priest?
In this particular one, I don't know which particular. Okay. I don't know which particular priest, okay. But the priests control the institutions.
Okay.
And then if there is a foreign king, there is not another rule. So it has to come from the people who have the most resources. So then either it is the priest or it is scribes. But nevertheless, this is sacred to the Nile Valley. Life, forever, the land, Ta. Ptah in his place. That is...
So you know what you're doing. Now we're learning that there were crooked priests all in ancient Kemet, brother.
Well, Jabari says no.
Just wait.
So Jabari says no.
You better wait.
So part two, we're going to talk about definitions. So I will, except for I do want to come back to this one last.
You still got more time, so you can go.
I do want to come back to this last part. Okay, so, oh, sorry. I don't know how that escaped me. So here is Cleopatra. So we have to examine who is in Kemet and how did this debacle actually cause? Because the priesthood is involved in the first, the early usurping of the king's power, becoming the king, losing to the Libyan missionaries, then finally running the kingdom by themselves, ending ultimately with Pianki coming back. And I'm not saying that the group of the Amun-Ra inside Nubia was corrupted, because they did come back and do some time, do some great things in their tenure, because they tried to restore Kemet using the old ways. But prior to this period over here is when the Amun-Ra priest began to get power and riches, and then control so much of the resources of Kemet, to the point where they are completely manipulating the people of Kemet.
All right.
So here is the basis of the beginning of what Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark and Dr. Jeffries and others sourced when they looked at ancient Kemet is the concept of the murder cult, people that's in charge of people's very intimate concepts of spirituality, and then they begin to usurp that, and then ended up usurping the crown. And in the second part, we're going to talk about some specific practices that's going to actually upset people. But I'm not beating up on ancient Kemet, because what I had said was that before this happened, you have so much of the math, the science, you have all of this intact until a group of a cult, the Amun cult, ultimately began to take over power. And then when they take over power, they take over power by, manipulating, usurping the power of the king, to the point that there is no really Sa-Ra now, son of Ra, or aspect of Ra, that the king itself, the king himself, is no longer the authority between humans and the principles, and that is what Kemet was founded on. And then now the priests now, who have been doing all the rituals, see that they can in fact manipulate this process, and it has led to, and this was religion. At this point, the priesthood had the resources, had the authority, and then had already spoken as if they was the Norsut, being the servants of the Norsut. Now they are speaking, and they're also in charge of things like coronary. So I thought there was a point that I should have talked about, where they became powerful in the time period of Hatshepsut, where she was the first, not the first female ruler, but the one that they actually made a Sat-Ra, that they began to manipulate her, her half brother, right? And then ultimately, you have the period of Ramesses, where Ramesses and Ramesses the Great, where you have Ramesses and Ramesses the Great being their success is a tribute to Amun, and Amun is now building their war chest. And then that is going to, and they're not going to give it up. And so all of the other systems simply seem to dissipate and become under the power of the Amun priest. So there's a part two. There's a part two to this, but I am going to let Brother Jabari impeach my concept, and then tell us all, if it wasn't for the dirty priest of Kemet usurping the values, the science, then how did it happen? And then we'll get to the other part.
All right, peace and Black Power family. Thank y'all for tuning in for our brother Dr. Reggie's powerful presentation. Now, responding to brother Reggie Mabry and his issue with Kemetic shrines, we have none other than brother Jabari Osaze, and he's going to respond to our beloved brother Dr. Reggie. Without any further ado, I bring to you brother Jabari.
Peace, family. This is Jabari Osaze again. Are you timing me? Please, someone time me. I don't believe I'm going to take 35 minutes, but peace, family. Once more, I am honored to speak to the Sonnetter TV studios, Black News 102 family. I really believe that we get to talk about issues that concern our people, and we don't often have that anywhere else. So it's powerful to be able to speak to you, and I'm honored to do it. So let me just say to you, I'm not happy that I'm having this discussion. I honestly feel that some of this discussion that I'm having with my brother Reggie, we could have had separately, privately. I could have really talked to him more about how we conduct ourselves as Kemetic spiritual practitioners. I could have introduced him to other Kemetic spiritual practitioners, and I was dismayed that he decided to have a conversation about those people who practice Ankh carriers, as he said as well. And he didn't talk to us. And so I'm not pleased to have this conversation. Reggie is my brother. I have known Reggie before I knew Sonetter, before I knew Shaka, before I knew Garfield. I've known Reggie for a long time. And while I was dismayed with what he did, he's still my brother. He's still my brother. I haven't fallen so far away from my brother that I won't continue to have conversations with him. I'm not saying that I dislike him. I dislike what he did, but I think that perhaps it'll lead to some important conversations. I'm hoping that that's what will happen, and then we'll be able to go someplace else rather than just to be in disagreement. So I should also say that listening to the beginning of Reggie's presentation, I did not know he was going to talk about ancient Kemet. I thought we were going to talk about what was happening in Kemetic shrines today. So to some degree, this presentation that he's done caught me a bit off guard. But I'm going to tell you, it caught me off guard for another reason. The other reason it caught me off guard is because I'm truly beginning to believe that Brother Reggie perhaps needs to study the history a bit further. Now, I know he's going to take this as an insult, but I think I'm being genuine here. I think Brother Reggie would benefit from my class on ancient Kemetic history, because I think that he's made several assertions that are not followed by the text, not followed by the sources, not followed by the archaeological evidence. He's made some jumps based on his own ideas that scholars of any ethnicity would not agree with. And so let me try to dissect some of what Reggie said. And I know that he did it because he's trying to say that spirituality in ancient Kemet, as he calls it, religion in ancient Kemet, led to its downfall. And so he tries to paint a picture that the priests of Kemet were a disrupting influence in ancient Kemet. And so that's why he does this. However, brothers and sisters, I'm going to tell you that the only way he can make that analysis is if he's not reading the history. The only way he can make this analysis is if he's separating what a priest is from what a priest is. More on that in a second, so you'll understand what I'm saying. So let's go in. Let's talk a bit about what our dear brother Reggie has said so that we're able to give you a proper historical perspective. First off, as Reggie says that religion destroys Kemet, he actually says that the king comes first and then religion comes later. Now, family, I don't know how he could make this assertion. I don't think there's anyone that is studying the historical record, studying the archaeological evidence, that could possibly make that claim. Let me show you this artifact here. Those of you who have been paying attention to this important dialogue that we've been having on Black News 102 with our brother Sonetter have seen me use this item before. It's called the Kustal incense burner. The Kustal incense burner. It is in fact an artifact that was found in Nubia, in what we would have called Kush, before ancient Kemet was in existence. So this piece actually is before what we call dynastic Kemet. This is before that great ruler known as Namr actually creates Kemet. This is before the kings, as he would call it. These are, in fact, the Nubian kings. And so as you look at this piece, what are you seeing? Just for the sake of time, let me just go to the middle. Underneath, you're seeing a line drawing of it. And you're seeing a king sit on a boat, this is a very, very common bit of Kemetic iconography, but it's before Kemet. This is Nubian iconography that it then loans to its daughter Kemet. And you're seeing this king sit on his throne with the white bulbous crown. The crown that would have referenced either Asar, but definitely would have referenced the king in the south, the king in Upper Kemet. Keep in mind that this is before Kemet. So what are we to believe? We should understand that this iconography, these ideas travel northward with the Hapi River, with the Nile River. That this is before Kemet, but these ideas were already in existence. You have heard me say that Kemet is nothing more than the flower of ancient African civilization. It did not originate it. African civilization is tens of thousands of years, and I'm talking about the actual archaeological record. I could actually say millions of years, but I'm talking about what we can prove was done tens of thousands of years earlier than Kemet. So as you see this king sitting on his throne, what do you see in front of his face? You see an image that indubitably must be Heru, that king that the Greeks then later tried to call Horus. So as you see this means that these spiritual ideas were existing before Kemet even was unified into a nation. So how is it that Reggie would like to describe this like this was a secular nation, that then these parasites known as the priests bring these ideas to Kemet? This is before Kemet. And so you have to understand that Kemetic spirituality is in fact African spirituality. It does nothing more than flourish in Kemet. Let's go further. You actually, when you look at this, this boat on the second part, on the first part, if you're looking at the line drawing, the first part of the cool still incense burner, you're seeing a large cat here. There are many people who believe that this is likely a version of the goddess, the Netert, sometimes called right here, sometimes called Bat, or Het Heru, who the Greeks later called Hathor. She is one of the earliest deities of Kemet. You see her actually on the holy boat of Ra. So clearly, these ideas predate Kemet. In fact, you could argue that it is the spiritual ideas that create Kemet. Let's not just give you images. You're looking at an incense burner. Remember, Brother Reggie said he's not going to burn incense? Do you remember him saying that? So what is he saying? This is before Kemet, the Kustal incense burner. This is clearly a spiritual item. Were they burning incense to the periodic table? No. It is clearly a spiritual item, and it predates Kemet. Let's go further. This is another artifact that predates dynastic Kemet. You're actually seeing an item that we would usually call a spiritual vase that comes from the period that's usually called the Nakata II period. And so what's the Nakata II period? It is once more another period that predates the dynastic period of Kemet. So you're actually seeing, and most people would argue this larger, it's on a boat, right? Because the Kemetic people usually connected their spiritual ideas to traveling on water. Particularly, some might actually say it's because of how important this great river, the Hapi, was to their lives. So they utilized this boat iconography in their spiritual ideas. And so you're actually seeing a boat, and on the boat, you're seeing what is likely a spiritual house. You're seeing two of them. The largest body on this Nakata vase is this one here, and we're seeing most people believe that this is a feminine deity once more. It's a Netert. You see she has a large round head, and she's depicted larger than these other bodies. Most scholars argue that these are likely priests who are propping up the image of the divine lady. So before Kemet, we see the priest. Let's go further. Let's get into the dynastic period, as Reggie would like to say. He argues that the priests come after the king. Well, you're looking at the world's first historical document, known as the Palette of Narmer, created by that king who creates dynastic Kemet. This is the rule that comes from further into the interior of Africa to conquer the people on the coast and to unify Kemet into one nation. In many ways, he is the founding father of Kemet. We also see him wearing the white bulbous crown, as we saw earlier. And what do we see when, first of all, let me say this. This is probably the first section of the palette. This is the period that occurs chronologically before the reverse, the other side of the palette. You're seeing the same device, just one side and the other side, just to be clear for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. Before Namar's face, you are seeing a falcon hold a hook in the nose of his northern enemies. So understand that Namar is connected to Heru, the falcon. That deity the Greeks called Horus. And once more, we see the great lady with cow horns on the top. This is often depicted as Bat, a goddess, or Het Heru. It's believed that Bat may be an early version of Het Heru. So you're seeing iconography of, and I'm going to use this term not because it fits extremely well, but for those people who are unfamiliar, so you understand where I'm going, and it connects to what Reggie's saying. These are early versions of gods. So for the man that actually comes forward to create Kemet, you are seeing that sacred to him are gods. Let's go further. When he actually unifies Kemet, you see him on the reverse of the palette, marching into the foreign land. And I want you to take a look at who was in front of him. Do you see this man here? He's depicted smaller. Mm-hmm. Some people call him Tagent. That's one way that they depict his name. I don't know if I agree with that transcription, or because they tend to be glyphs that are not commonly used. But this is his name here.
What's his name?
This is his name here. There's this loop. And then this sometimes they say this is a loaf of bread. That's his name. Let's go further. A loaf of bread, which gives us the T sound. These are two words or two glyphs, two phonetic symbols that are being put together to create his name. But as you look at him, I want you to look. Do you notice he has his arm around the other side of him? What is he doing? As you look at him, you should understand that he is holding a leopard cloth.
Right.
What does that mean? It means that he is likely a Sem priest, a funerary priest. So, Brother Jabari, are you telling me that along with the first king that creates Kemet, we see a priest going before him as one of his greatest allies? So great that he's actually depicted by name on the world's first historical document? How could Reggie say the kings come and then the priests come? Technically, this priest is walking in front of Namar. Reggie needs to study the history a bit more, because he's not able to make the arguments he's making based on the evidence that exists. And either he was hoping you hadn't read the evidence or weren't familiar with the history, or he's unaware of it. I would like to believe that he's unaware of it, because the first rationale would mean that he's doing something that's a bit deceptive. And I don't know him to be a deceptive person. So I think that he's unaware of it. But if you're unaware of it, then perhaps the arguments you're making are not followed by the literature, not followed by the text, not followed by the artifacts. And that would mean that you cannot make the argument you are making confidently. That's a problem. That's a big problem. Because if you know Kemet at all, you know this artifact, the Palette of Namar. So how could he say that the kings come first and then the priests come? How could he say that? There are those that even argue that this person behind him, whose name we cannot pronounce, his name is particularly depicted by a rosette. We don't know what phonetic value that glyph has anymore. There are those who argue that he is also a priest. He's holding here the sandals of Namar and what looks to be a purification vase. If he's doing purification, he is likely also a priest. Now the difference here is that he's even with him before he unifies Kemet. The other priest I showed you is only present after. But these are people who are important to the first father, the first king of ancient Kemet. And so I want you to understand this and ask our brother how he came to the conclusion that he came to based on what we can all see and what we all know. Let's go further. He even calls the priest of Kemet dirty. Is he talking about Imhotep? Was Imhotep not a priest? Of course Imhotep was a priest. He would also like to pretend that they're scientists and then they're dirty priests. Imhotep is both. Family, you need to understand,
what you mean?
he is a priest and a scientist, not a dirty priest.
Okay.
I would not say that about Imhotep. All that we know about Imhotep is that he was a great man. We know that he is one of the world's first recorded doctors. We know that he is a poet. We know that he's a jati, which means he's something like a prime minister. Usually Europeans depict that title as vizier, but the name that we use was jati. So that he is a very important person in all of Kemetic history. He's an engineer, an architect. He builds the world's first monumental building in stone. This man is a priest. Is he a dirty priest, Reggie?
No.
Yeah, he says no. Of course he would say no. So then how does he know who's dirty and who isn't? By the way, I'm going to tell you that his depiction of the priesthood of Amun is incorrect as well. So let's go further. Now, let's jump quite a bit far forward. Okay? Because I want you to now understand what Reggie is doing. First of all, he doesn't talk about the Old Kingdom much. Not much in his discussion. But he goes to the 18th dynasty, then he jumps to the 3rd intermediate period to make his argument. You should know that the 18th dynasty, scholars usually give the 18th dynasty as its time period being around something like 1549 BCE to 1292 BCE. And the 3rd intermediate period begins in 525 BCE. I want you to understand that if Reggie believes that religion destroyed Kemet, first of all, you're seeing priests help create Kemet at around 3200 BCE. And then the 18th dynasty is literally over 1500 years later. This is the slowest destruction I have ever seen. Are you telling me that the priests destroyed Kemet, but it took them over 1,500 years? Over 1500 years to do so? This is not an argument that makes any sense whatsoever. And then he jumps from the 18th dynasty to the 3rd intermediate period, which is another 1,000 years later. Family, Kemet is one of the longest lasting nations in the land. We see the priesthood active at all periods in Kemetic history. And in fact, who was the chief priest of the land? The king was the chief priest of the land. Why does Reggie even make a distinction between the king and the priest? The only way he can make that distinction truly is for him to look at the 3rd intermediate period. But to do that, he's already given away years where the priests are a mainstay of Kemetic thought, Kemetic science, Kemetic literature, and the ceremonial life of the land. How could he do that and say they've destroyed Kemet? This is in fact one of the most important institutions of Kemet. He is making the weakest possible argument. I've been going for 19 minutes. He is making the weakest possible argument. I don't know why he's making the weakest possible argument. Perhaps it's once more because he's unfamiliar with the historical record. And if he is unfamiliar with it, perhaps he studied the language more. That's possible. There are people who focus more on the language than they do on the history. It happens. I don't know whether Reggie has ever taken a history class on the history of ancient Kemet like Brother Jabari did. I don't know if he's done that. If he hasn't, he should actually take Brother Jabari's college level history class. It is 15 weeks. It is a better class than the class I paid $4,000 for when I was at Cornell University. It's a better class. Better for lots of reasons. Technically, because I'm dealing with it from an African perspective, and also technically in terms of the technology, because you get to see the slides, you get the books, and you also, in addition to that, can do it online. And when Brother Jabari was at Cornell, by the way, Brother Jabari is old, just like Brother Reggie is, so he can't make any old jokes because he's actually older than me. But you got to understand that there was no online class when I took it. They teach the same class at Columbia from a European perspective, and that class is probably around $7,000 or $8,000 now. I would be willing to let Brother Reggie be part of the class for free. And my queen will beat me up for saying it. For free. And I wouldn't even gig on him and say, Reggie's in my class. I wouldn't do that. Because we could enter a deeper dialogue if he's more familiar with the rest of the history. Let's go further. So Brother Reggie talks about the priesthood who has actually usurped the throne from the king. And he's talking about the third intermediate period. He's talking about a priest by the name of Herihor. Now, I'm going to say to you that scholars used to say that in the 80s when Reggie was probably learning some of this information. They don't say it as definitively anymore. Why? It is true that he is a priest and that he writes his name in a shen. That's that word that Reggie uses as cartouche. Cartouche is a French word. Our Kemetic term for this device that is an oval with the name written in it is a shen. And it is how you know that he actually became king as well. So what the scholars used to say is, well, if there's a king in the south in the temple of Amun being Herihor, who was a priest, and a king in the north who was Ramses IX, they must have been in conflict. What does Reggie not know? Let me show you what Reggie may be unfamiliar with. What are we seeing here? We are actually seeing an image of Herihor in front and his wife. Do you know who his wife was, Reggie?
I can look it up.
He can look it up. He's not familiar with this story. He needs to be familiar with it. Her name was Najamet. Why is Najamet important? This is the information Reggie does not have, because if he has to look it up, he doesn't know the full story. Najamet.
He married a royal.
She's not just a royal.
Okay, thank you. But now I'm recalling.
She's not just a royal.
That is the only way he got to be Nosud.
Let me show you what he does. No, but you didn't answer it fully. Let me explain why he didn't answer it fully. Now, the person that Herihor is actually also reigning with is Ramses IX. By the way, for those of you who are a little bit less familiar with the history, Ramses IX is not, he has the same name as Ramses the Great, who was Ramses II, but he is not related to him. After Ramses II has this amazing reign, people begin to take his name, but they are actually not related to him. So he's not actually related to Ramses II. But Ramses IX is the king in the north, while we see Herihor become the king in the south. But who does he marry? This is Najamet. Najamet is the daughter of Ramses IX. If Herihor was in conflict with Ramses IX, if Herihor had actually usurped the throne from Ramses IX, why would he have married his daughter? Scholars no longer argue that they are not in some sort of collaboration. Let's go further. When we see Herihor write his documents as the king of the south, he uses, now listen to this, because I want you to get this clearly. You may not get it right away. He uses the time frame that is the same as Ramses IX. Usually, the Kemetic people say year 1 of the king's reign, year 2 of the king's reign, year 3 of the king's reign. He doesn't say year 1 of my reign. He says year 1 of Ramses IX's reign. He says year 2 of Ramses IX's reign. He is in collaboration with Ramses IX. This is the latest information that has been out for about 20 years. And I don't think that Reggie is as familiar with it. We no longer say that the priest usurped the throne for the king. They are working together. Let's go further. Now, we're now talking about the 25th dynasty. And Reggie actually argues that the king that comes forward from Nubia, from Cush, whose name is let me be clear. Reggie also renders his name Pianki. That is an old rendition. His name is no longer vocalized as Pianki. They call him Pa, because they realized that earlier scholars were using a defunct way to render his name. This is another thing that tells me that Reggie is not as familiar with the latest work, that he's not reading the journals, that he's not actually talking to people who are studying this. If he says Pianki, it gives you a date. He's talking about something he read in the 80s. He is now called Pa. Pa. If I'm wrong, go look it up yourself, family. So what does Pa do? Pa comes from Nubia to put Kemet back together. Reggie would like you to believe he puts it back together because the dirty priests have taken it apart. That is not what he has done. There is no scholar that would make that argument. He even reads a part of Pa's stele that says, you have done these things that are incorrect. But Reggie tries to pretend that he's talking to the priest. He is not talking to the priest. Who is Pa talking to? He's talking about the foreign rulers who are now on the throne in Kemet. So how does Pa come north into Kemet? Now, you could imagine if he's a foreign ruler, he would have to fight past the borders, right? Let's say the president of Mexico says, you know what, this Donald Trump is actually, he's got to go. So I'm going to take over the United States government and put it back in order. Don't you think he would have to fight at least the border guards, the National Guard, and then the army who would be defending the southern border of the United States? He doesn't do that. Why doesn't he do that? What Reggie is not telling you is Pa was asked to come. By who, he might ask? You might ask. He was asked to come by the priest of Amun. The same people that Reggie is calling dirty. The priest of Amun had been practicing Kemetic spirituality for thousands of years. The priesthood of Amun was Kemet's most stalwart institution. In fact, whenever Kemet has a fall or some sort of strife, it is the folks that come from the interior around that city that is known as Waset. Waset means the seat of dominion, is how people usually translate that. Waset was later called Thebes, and then the Arabs call it Luxor. It's where we get the word luxury from. Did you know that the word luxury is a reference to your ancient African city? Did you know that, family? Someone needs to tell you that if you're unfamiliar. But back to this. So Pa actually comes from beyond Kemet into Kemet to actually beat up all of these foreign people, because what is happening in Kemet is that things have fallen apart so much that there are at least 12 people, more than that I believe, that were actually calling themselves king, but they didn't have control of the whole land. So Pa comes forward, and on the stele, he says that they're doing wrong, and he defeats each of the kings. That's what the stele tells us. It doesn't say anything about the priest being dirty, because the priests are the ones that asked him to come there. How do we know that? Well, Pa, the movement to restore Kemet doesn't begin under Pa. It begins under his father. His name is usually rendered Kashta. It means something like the Nubian is how we would translate it today. Kashta. So who was one of the chief priests of the Temple of Amun during the reign of Kashta and Pa? Take a look on the side here. Do you see this image? Mm-hmm. Do you know who this is, Reggie?
That's the Amun priest?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know who she is? He's going to try to read the name. That's good.
Yeah, I can. It just
you see Amun.
Yeah, I see. Of course, it's Amun. Right, and I can't see.
This.
Right. Okay, DS. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Amanirdis is usually how her name is rendered. She is the divine adoratress of Amun. That means that she is one of the highest priests in the temple. Amanirdis, with reference to Pa. She's his sister. She is actually the daughter of Kashta, their father. So that we know now that the Nubians in the south were working with the Temple of Amun to restore Kemet. This is exactly the opposite of the story that Reggie is telling you. There is not a scholar of any ethnicity who would argue the case that Reggie is making. This is not the story that Dr. Ben would tell. Dr. Ben was the person that first introduced me to Amanirdis. How is Reggie getting it wrong? The Temple of Amun restores Kemet. And he's working in collaboration with his sister, who is one of the highest officials in the Temple of Amun. When he comes forward and he says, we're going to defeat these people, he's not talking about the priests. He's talking about the people who actually are not in collaboration with the Temple of Amun. That's the story that the historical record bears out. Reggie needs to read the stele of the purification of Pa again. I read part of it in my presentation in response to him. This is how I know that he also didn't watch the whole video that I put up. He didn't watch the whole thing. Because if he did, he would have known I was going to say this. He would have known this. I've read the stele for you. If you're going to debate someone, you should look at what they're saying about you. This is low-hanging fruit for me. I already talked about it. Let's go further. Here, I'm going to end here. You're asking about the time? I have 3 minutes left. Here we go. I'm going to end here. Reggie also says that it is the priests that allow the foreigners to be on the throne. Well, family, you should understand that when foreigners finally come to Kemet, and I'm not talking about the Nubians, because I don't even view them as foreigners. But when foreigners come into Kemet, it is not because the priests allow them in. It is because Kemet is failing, and it's not due to religion. We could talk more about that. You can see that the priests are actually a mainstay of Kemet for its over 3,000-year history. They come in with armies. And there are tons of reasons why Kemet is failing. It is definitely not because of religion. But when the foreigners finally get on the throne, he shows you their names written in the Shen. Did he show you this? This is an image from Dendera. You will see this at the temple of Medinet Habu. You will see this at the temple of Buto. You will see this at many of the Kemetic temples that were created during the time that the foreign people are on the throne. Now, let's be clear. The foreign people did not have the technology to create the temples. So they worked with local indigenous people to create these institutions. But what did they do as a form of activism, as a form of rebellion against these foreign people? They would create the temple, and then guess what they would do? What are you seeing here, Brother Sa? Do you see this Shen? Mm-hmm. Can you see a name written in it? It's actually blank. Because the Shen is a symbol of eternity. That person who was written in that Shen would be able to live into eternity. So what did the priests do when they made these temples for foreign rulers? They left their names out of it. The only time they would put their name in is if they knew the foreign ruler was actually coming to see the temple. Because that's when they would get in trouble. They'd put their name in. They'd build the entire temple without the name as a form of spiritual heka, as a form of power against the foreigners. That's what they do. These people are not in collaboration with foreign people. I really hope that Brother Reggie becomes more familiar with the archaeological and the textual record, because the arguments he's made are not supported by it. I look forward to hearing his discussion of how modern Kemetic shrines have failed us, because that's what I thought we were going to be talking about today. So family, I want to say thank you, and I hope that you followed this conversation very closely. Peace.
Peace. Peace and Black Power family. Here we are now. We have Brother Jabari finished the body of work of responding to our brother, Dr. Reggie. And now, Brother Reggie comes back with his rebuttal. And Reggie, I must say, you're going to have to turn it up a notch, brother. Information-wise, I'm talking about, of course. Without any further ado, we have seen Brother Jabari's presentation, and now we are coming back with our beloved brother, Dr. Reggie. Rebuttal. Peace.
I heard the debate of the century is coming with Brother Jabari and Captain Tazariak, right?
Yes, that's going to be at the sign of the TV Awards.
That's the debate? Okay, so I'm going to say what Captain Tazariak says all the time. No sweat. No sweat. Okay, first thing. First thing, you know, I don't like to play religious games. I don't like to play religious games. So first of all, you have Hor. Hor is in the mythology, the sacred mythology of the Nile Valley African. Hor becomes the ruler. He becomes the righteous ruler after he defeats his uncle Set, right? So here you have Ner-Mer here, right? And he is smiting his enemy. My point still stands. The king's authority comes first. All the priests do is serve the king and write it. That's all that they do, right? So you have to be crazy to think that the priests are telling a king how to win a war. The king wins a war because he is prepared. He understands what the mission is. That is how he wins a war. The priests come later to actually monument. So he's looking at this religiously, right? Instead of looking at this, showing the authority of the mythological, sacred mythological story of Horus defeating with Ner-Mer defeating his enemies. Now, in this side, yeah, there may be he plays these games. Oh, the priest is walking forward. The priest ain't winning the war. It's the warriors, it's the commitment, it's the well-trained people. He is smiting this person probably is a sandal bearer. You can make him a priest all you want. Yeah, he's a priestly sandal bearer if you want to make him a priest. Now, I want to go over here and so this is all going to get really good right here. Okay, this is going to get real good. Oh, Reggie, you should know 20 years ago, it was people. We know now, it was Pianki, but we know now it's P. Brother Reggie, they don't use PA anymore. Okay, brother, can you see this right here? Can you read this? This is the Restoration Stella. Can you read this?
You want me to come over there?
Yeah, I want you to read it. You can blow it up if you want to. Here's his shin.
You want to take it off?
Here's his shin. No, just open up. You do what you do.
No, it doesn't work that way. You have to download the image. I'm not interrupting your piece.
No, I don't want you. No. What does this shin read? Does it say PA or does it say Pianki?
I'm going to answer that.
Okay.
In my piece.
Okay. So this says Pianki. Right? This is what the meta-nature says. It says Pianki. Now, if he wanted to do that, what he just said, he'll answer it later. He should have answered it now, because I was going to go to the restoration. Yes, I want you to answer it now.
What he is doing is he is reading all of the glyphs in the Shen. That's what he's doing. Now, today, what scholars do is they recognize that often in Shens, there are words that are not spoken because they are, just like when you look at the Shen of Tutankhamen, there are certain sections of the glyphs that you do not read because they're spiritual symbols. They are not supposed to be vocalized. And so that is what he's doing. That's what he's doing. He's vocalizing the entire word. Now, he's not disagreeing with me. He's disagreeing with all of the scholars that read it today.
This is fine. So all of a sudden now, it's spiritual that the Ankh doesn't exist. He has to give a source. It's not spoken, right? Or it's not read, right? So he is giving me, you can, on your side, you can give me a source, but it's interesting that Tut Ankh Amun, then all of a sudden the Ankh is rendered there. But all of a sudden with Pianki, because of some spiritualness, all of a sudden it disappears. So I'm just gonna continue. So I don't know what I can see if you're talking about honorific, but that's fine. We're gonna come back.
That's precisely what
we're gonna come back to it. But that is that's fine. But which Medu-Neter scholar do you know that silences the Ankh? Because you are a person who always carries the Ankh, right? And you'll always use the Ankh. So how come all of a sudden with Pianki, the Ankh is not existent, but every time that y'all want to talk about the Ankh, you talk about the Ankh. It's not hitting. All right, so you could go find a source, and then you know what? And then we could take that source, and you know what? We can look at, because sometimes it's European hieroglyphics, and then it's the Medu Neter. So let's take it to the Medu Neter scholars. All right? Okay. So so let me just see some other stuff. So the major things that he was talking about, you know, he's being confused. I think he is being confused when he shows a stele, and a stele is something written by the scribes and the priesthood to tell the story of the king. The king comes first. The issue of the dirty priest, not all the priesthood in ancient Kemet is dirty. What I said on my presentation is that everything that was important in Kemet was created before the Amuns began to put pressure on the other Norsuts and ultimately usurp the thrones. So I am not to say and to generalize and say, I say all priests, just like the Moors, there are righteous Moors and there are dirty Moors. There are righteous Moors and then there are dirty Moors, right? So, take out 10 minutes. So the issue is what he wants us not to do.
He didn't set the time. Did you want him to take out 10 minutes? Did you think we spoke for 10 minutes? Or
We'll take out 5.
Yes, that's good, because I'm looking at it right now. It says 5:53.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
53.
Is that fair?
5:53.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. And when we are arguing amongst our people, when we get up there and we start talking about the dirty Moors, right? And then the righteous Moors, all of a sudden in ancient Kemet, everything is good. But Kemet was destroyed, and I showed you references about the how the Amun priest was usurping the throne. And I think that is well settled. And you know what? After this debate, we'll leave it up to the scholars in the community to, in fact, go back and fact check whether or not is there what is the rationale that an Amun priest would be a co-regent of a king. One of the ways that they have usurped and how these priesthoods got involved is they get involved in a coronation. They decide if you're a proper king, and if you're not a proper king, they tell you who to marry. So we have, which I referenced before, with that murder cult that was happening with Akhenaten, right? With Akhenaten, and then Tutankhamun, and there was another Norsut before him, but Tutankhamun's wife, Ankhes Amen, was forced to marry I, right, so that I could have some legitimacy of the throne, right? So you have lots of this marrying royals because that's how the priesthood operated. So they got involved in those to actually usurp the throne. So let's go to, so I just wanted to say he's going to have to find one source or two sources that all of a sudden Pianki is pi, and you know what? It better be Medu Neter sources, Medu Neter scholars, right? Now, okay. Because all of a sudden, because you know what? There's hieroglyphics. Right. And then there's us getting together to try to understand what our ancestors says. I don't think I've ever heard Dr. Yosef Ben Jochanan say pi, right? So, and all of a sudden, how do you get
Medu Neter scholar?
No, but he has a tradition. Say that again. Is Dr. Ben a Medu Neter scholar? Say that.
Is Dr. Ben a Medu Neter scholar?
No. Dr. Ben may not be a Medu Neter scholar, but Dr. Ben was one of the people who gave us this tremendous information, and his writings on black men in the Nile and his writings on Abu Simbel with the Medu Neter, right? Those, that Medu Neter that he copied, he knows exactly what he is talking about when he is talking about it. Now, does he have any expertise in writing full sentences or translating full sentences? No, but he had resources. He always said he had resources to get it done. And some of those resources came out of Nubia. So be a little bit cool We're not trying to, because I seen a little note saying people deifying Dr. Ben. We're not deifying Dr. Ben, but I'm just going to answer that point. So let's continue. Let's continue on.
We're going in now.
And I'm not, check this out. Check this out. Your course, if you want to argue something like that in your course about Pianki or P, right? Check this out. That is something that could be debated and should be debated. I think Deofalo Benga, I don't know if Deofalo Benga, I'll have to look when I sit down and see what Deofalo Benga has to say about that, and what Dr. Riketi Amin has to say about that, and what Sheka Anta Diop has to say about that. If that's in your course,
Anta Diop?
Sheka Anta Diop, what's the matter with Sheka Anta Diop?
What year did he die?
What matter? What do you mean? What year did he die? You can ask what time period was his book or his books was written. African Origin of Civilization and Civilization of Barbarism. You could ask that question, not when did he die. That's not respectful. That's disrespectful, right? That has nothing to do with his writing, right? Okay, so let me go on. I'm losing it. You wait. You just wait to see what our people have to say about what you just said in your anger. Because you know what? You're angry. You're angry. You are more than disappointed. You are angry. Your anger caused you to come in here to think that I would not have a basis about what I would say about problems with religion and priesthood. And you didn't think that I would come in here and source Nile Valley, and you didn't impeach the rest of what I had said.
What source did you give us? You didn't give us a source. You just said some stuff you wrote down on a page. There's no source. You better stop it. There's no source there.
The priest and the great king, temple palace relations in the Persian Empire.
Wait, in a what?
In the Persian Empire.
Okay, thank you.
By Elizabeth.
That's all you need to say.
No.
That's all you need to say.
No. See,
You're
now.
not impeaching your own source.
No, you understand, because what they do. No, what they do is they give a basis for what happens later.
Right.
Are you silly?
You don't even understand what you're saying.
They write an article. They write an article, and then I'm telling you, you asked me, was there a source? I told you, brother, wait, let me stop this. Brother Jabari.
You want to pause?
No. Brother Jabari, you asked me, it was stuff that I said. I'm showing you a source. I read your source, and then you say something about in the Persian Empire. We're talking about something that's leading up to temple palace relationships in the Persian Empire.
When was it?
By referencing by referencing this particular quote from the Harris Papyrus. The temples were also a major organ of taxation and redistribution. Like the great Mesopotamian temples, Egypt temples were the estates of residence of the gods. Like every other estate in antiquity, they aspired to self-sufficiency. Temple estates included houses and gardens for staff, plus storehouses, workshops, and slaughter yards. The permanent staff of the temple at Medinet Habu was estimated 150 men and their families. This included high-ranking ritualists and administrators, as well as peasants and artisans. All there lived within the temple confines in the time of Ramses III, when the god Amun was in favor. Right? So this particular period talks about the power of the Amun-Ra priest. Right? Let's just see. Okay, so I did talk about this source. The weakening of pharaonic power, the third intermediate period. The weakening of the pharaonic power had much to do with what? The destabilization and with the Amun priesthood. Right? So I think... no, but that's the. But generally, yes, it will talk about. Did you read it? Did you read it? So the fact of the matter is that the empire becomes divided between the north and south, but they are working together. Okay, that's fine. But I showed you a resource, and then over here,
Reggie,
yes.
I'm on the side, so
No, I'm sorry, I'm messing up my presentation. Okay, so the fact of the matter, I did And then I over here show you over here, Pianki, right? And let's just see in the Medu Neter here if his name is in here. Okay, Egypt, Lower Egypt, Pianki. So let's see if it says P or Pianki. So where is this? It says 43, 53, 50, somewhere in here. No, so Biddy, Pianki. All right, so over here in this source, where Brother Jabari wants to tell me about the Medu Neter, right? It says Pianki over here, and then in the transliteration, they transliterate it as Pianki. Beloved of Amen. Mary Imian. So go find your source for the people about P. Right? You just do that for me. So now, let's stop this stupidness about playing with words. We speak English because this is the we lost the war, and we do not speak we do not speak the Medu Neter as if it was in ancient Kemet. We don't. So most of the work that you may do as a Hem Neter Tepi is in English and is not the Medu Neter. Some of it may be in the Medu Neter. I'm going to give it to you that. But most of it is translations into English so that people will know. But you or other people have this problem with, oh, it's not a religion. We don't do religion. We do spirituality. Right? We don't do religion. So you play with the English words, and that's unacceptable. And I'm not saying that you did it, Brother Jabari, personally, because Brother Jabari is not about me and you. It's about the perception of our community. So I'm not saying you did it. So take that. Your heart is heavy, man. I mean, there's a balance, right? I have not tried to disrespect you, talk about your I have not. I'm talking about the information, and I'm just checking some information. So religion is a state of life bound by religious vows, the condition of belonging to a religious order, i.e. a Christian church, a member of a religious order, right? Action or conduct indicating belief and obedience to a reverence for a god or gods or similar superhuman, periods, power, the performance of religious rites or observations. That's religion. Right? Let's look at another. There's phrases. A person bound by religious vows as a monk or a nun, a member of the clergy. You're a member, you talk about being a member of the clergy. It's religion. That's how we deal with. A house of religion, a religious house, especially a monastery or a nunnery. In our situation, we have something called, per ankh, house of life. Religion. Let's look at other groups of people who practice this. Dr. Muta Ashby, right? We share a name, Reginald. He has a video where he talks about the introduction to Shetut Neter, ancient Egyptian African religion by Dr. Muta Ashby. He calls his system not just a spirituality, but a religion. He does that. And he does that? Yes. He does that. It's the Shetut Neter, but he says he will go in and talk about our religion. He will do that. Crickets. The Assault Society International. From this site, asorlando.org or Orlando, asorlando.org, about us. If this is a genuine website of Assault Society, right? It says the Assault Society is a pan-African religious organization that has been providing the Afrocentric based spiritual training to the African American community and to African descendants in the diaspora. All of a sudden, you see a misuse of words coming from groups of people who say, oh, we're not religious, we're spiritual. Over here, they say that they are a religious organization that has been providing Afrocentric based spirituality.
Is this to me?
This is to the audience.
Oh, okay, because I don't understand. I didn't make those claims.
I said, in general, I'm talking about the concepts involved in this debate. Okay. And I had said, Brother Jabari, that not you, because I have not heard you, but one of the reasons why I have been doing this is because people seem to check my Africanness, they check my spirituality, and I'm checking that. I'm checking them on research. Yeah, I know. Okay, spirituality, the quality of being concerned with religion or the human spirit. We speak English. We use dictionaries. So if you are practicing spirituality using that dictionary, it says the quality of being concerned with religion or the human spirit. Now, in Seba, if D.C. Jehudimas's book, I'm not going to look at, I'm not going to look specifically up because of the lack of time, but I will say that when he talks about spirituality, he also uses words like enlightenment, right? So spirituality can be confined by the European to just the human spirit, but it can also, but spirit, this is how Europeans do. Spirituality, and then they use the same daggone word. So it's like it becomes circular. So traditionally, spirituality refers to a religious process of reformation which aims to recover the original shape of man, oriented at the image of God, as exemplified by founders and sacred texts of religions around the world, blah, 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 blah. And then it says here, the source is number 1, which is Saucer Gerard, and it says spirituality, but spiritual, but not religion. Spiritual, but not religion. So I'm giving, I'm sourcing where they talk about these particular terms. Cult is another word. Cult is another word. I will play a tape of Dr. Jeffrey saying that Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark warned us about creating cults. Right? What is a cult? It doesn't have to be bad. Religion doesn't have to be bad. Spirituality don't have to be bad. It's just language. But when you are proselytizing, you want to manipulate words, right? You want to make a word be good or bad. And I had a conversation with Brother Ankh about this. Uncle Keck. Shout out to Uncle Keck. And man, shout out to Lisa B and Brother Trevor. 2 good friends of mine, they watch me all the time and they tell me and they say, Brother Reggie, you never shout us out. And thank y'all. But anyway, spirituality doesn't have to be, cult doesn't have to be good or bad. Spirituality doesn't have to be good or bad. Religion doesn't have to be good or bad. They're just words. And the things that we do fall into those words. Proselytize. Brother Reggie butchers this every time he says it. Yes, I have sometimes difficulty in talking quickly, but if I slow down, proselytize, right? From the Oxford Dictionary, right? It's a word. It's not good or bad, but it does say convert or attempt to convert someone from one religious belief or opinion to another. The program did have a tremendous evangelical effect, proselytizing many, as an example of a word. I do think on your video you immediately showed some European talking about proselytization. No, you'd be better served, scholar, is simply just to give the dictionary word instead of having somebody.
I did.
Yeah. It just better serve. You didn't need the dramatics. Just use proselytize. That's all. And read the definition. That would be better. Now.
Teach, Red. Red's going in now.
Did the ancient people of the Nile Valley practice a religion? I don't think, Brother Jabari, you do not say that they did. They do not. But there are people out here that do that. So,
how much more time you got? Let them know.
He has 8 minutes.
All right.
Oh man! So, brothers and sisters, because it's unfortunately I had to impeach something, but I'll come along with this, and I know how to wrap it up. Okay, so here's some meta nature. You want to help me? Do you want to help me? You him nature tepi. Do you want to help me?
Me? Help me do what?
Yeah. Do you want to read some of the sacred meta nature?
You need to read and explain what you're doing.
Okay. All right. No, fine. I'm just no. It doesn't matter. I mean, because meta nature is very difficult, and it's very difficult, and you do have to do the meta. You do have to study the meta nature, and we're not always precise. But I can just generally say that here is the transliterations. But here is the reason why I'm showing this is just simply to say this is actually from the Stella of Yabu, which I gave to the public because people don't use my work, which I gave to Brother Infadishi, and his study group has taken my the work that my source where I gave them and told them why it's important, and they have done a phenomenal piece on it, which they're going to publish. But Brother Reggie don't contribute nothing. But in here it basically says that and he stood and he went to the mansion of the net, the Hawat net, right? And in there, his heart and his deeds. He went there for something concerning his heart and his deeds inside there, right? And then it says that he also stood and he went into the Hawat per Ankh. The Hawat per Ankh, and it's 2 parets, and Ankhs. So this is the big chamber. And then here he unrolled the souls, the Ba Ray, the souls of Ray, so that he can be informed by it. So even when we're doing the meta nature, we do have to use these words, and then we do have to source it to a dictionary. It's not magic, but there are some words in here that anybody, because here is a priest, Imhotep. He dragged me on Imhotep for a few minutes. This is Imhotep went for Neterket in the Hawat, in the mansion of the net, this Hawat net, and in it, right, you see his heart, right, and you see his deeds, and you see that he at least went into a building, the Hawat, that almost anybody could read, parrot, or it could be T-pair, but it should be parrot as female, because the female's a temple of the Ankh, unrolled the souls of Ray, and he was guided by them. So he went into several institutions.
What's the point of this?
You want to interrupt me and ask me what the point of it is?
I don't know why you're reading it.
The point of it is that I'm showing you an institution of religion, right? And institutions that is ordered, that fits into the category if ancient Kemet was religious and did spirituality. So I'm showing you a primary to prove my point. It's not up to you, but the damage has already been done. You just don't know yet, right? You just don't know, all right? So over here is some more.
Don't worry about that.
Thank you. It's some more Medu nature, right? And anybody over here could see that this says Ha-M Seba. Ha-M Seba. And then it says it, Sebaet, which are the words that we use all the time. Sabayet, right? Mm-hmm. We use these words all the time. And then it talks about over here something, the path, the what, and Ankh, the path of life. So even if we're not so familiar with all the pieces, basically we can find out that this is the Sabiat, this is the foremost Sabiat, and this is the house of life. And the translation says, beginning of the instructions of the sayings of the correct way of life. So the correct way of life is what in Ankh. I asked you before, I said, what is the Nile Valley, how can you find Nile Valley spirituality in the Medu nature, right? What are the words and you tried to sun me or clown me on that, right?
That's not what you asked me.
Right. It is in life. It is the Wat in Ankh. I asked you about spirituality. I asked you, where can you find spirituality in the Medu Neter? Well, here is the, as we live our lives, it's called the way of life, Wat in Ankh. And then in the Wat in Ankh, are you familiar with that? At least the Wat in Ankh?
Of course.
You find spirituality. I'm showing you in the Medu Neter. What you did not do?
What did you ask me?
I asked you when you came on the show, and you said, Brother Reggie asked me to find the word for spirituality in the Medu Neter.
Yes.
He did. And I am showing you aspects of something that I think is far more important in context of the Nile Valley African. And the word is Wat in Ankh. And the Wat in Ankh encompasses more of a holistic and not just dealing with the afterlife. Okay, that's my point. Whether you agree or disagree, it don't matter. It don't matter because I'm showing you Medu Neter. So it doesn't matter. So let's see if I can go down. Okay, so this is the instructions of Amenhotep. Many of these people see this text as related to the Proverbs. And over here again it says beginning of the instructions of the and here it says of the living. And again, just for people's concern, I think maybe Jabari was saying sometimes in sinews, which I called cartouche, just to be because we have different types of people. Some people don't do the Medu Neter. They know what a cartouche is, so I was just trying to be quick. But the fact of the matter is that maybe we'll find his source that only in the sinew is the Ankh silent. And he'll tell me why after 90 days. So here it goes. Now, this Medu Neter.
90 days silent?
This Medu Neter, huh?
You put them on the 90 days silent after this?
No,
okay.
I'm only talking. Jabari, my brother.
Right.
Jabari, my brother. Jabari gonna come back and say, family, I have never heard anything more ridiculous, but me and Jabari, we've been doing this forever.
Yes, that's true.
And then when Jabari says, Brother Reggie, you should take my $1,000 course, I say, several $1,000s? How much is your course for all those weeks?
$400.
$400. It sounds like it was, but you said it's equivalent to $1,000.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, so it's the value of $1,000. But Brother Jabari, maybe you'll hang out with Brother Reggie, and maybe you might take my Medu Neter course. So here,
you got a minute and a half. You got a minute and 10 seconds.
Okay, so actually, I wanted you to read this because this is something that you recite here, right? And I wanted you to receive it. So you could read this Medu Neter, and you know what it says.
I know what you're referring to, but I'm not reading nothing for you.
Okay, you're not going to read.
I am not a trained dog.
Okay, so you're not a trained dog?
No.
No, you don't have to do that to me, brother. You ask me questions. Stop it. Stop it. So I didn't get to my point on today's Kemetic concepts.
You didn't get to your point yet?
No, I didn't get to. I did not get to that because I did not come here. I did not come to his shrine of Ma'at, the Center for Restoration of Ma'at, to do it to Brother Jabari and Sister Anika. I think people should come here. I think that people should come here. I think that is not the problem. I was not talking about him, but what took me off is somebody was offering me gifts for no particular reason that I could see for what purpose. You don't have to. If you want Brother Reggie, just call Brother Reggie up. I'm not going to be on your side if you give me something. Right? Sinetta tries to give me money all the time.
All the time.
Right? And that's not how you, because, you know, some of the things Sinetta have you do, boy, Sinetta be in the dirt. So I can't be always there.
What you mean? I try to give you money for what?
No, you
clear that up.
No,
you don't want people to think that.
No, sometimes you just say, Brother Reggie, listen, I know you right. I know here, right? You're doing this work and stuff like that. But I know when I take something from you, especially you be offering lots of money.
But I don't ask you for nothing.
So
the bottom line is that's my brother. And if he's with me and I see sometimes he might be having hard times or hardships, because he'll say to me, oh, sorry, I ain't got nothing. I'll be like, Reggie, I got $100 donation for you.
Okay.
On the strip of that's my brother. He rolled with me and he got my back. So that's not and guess what, Jabari? I don't say, oh, you owe me. Never said that to him, and he'll tell you that. So
come on. I have some videos that I wanted to play. I'm going to give up my time because I wanted Dr. Jeffries and then Sonetta is going to put up the video of Dr. Jeffries soon. Dr. Jeffries is going to tell you basically instructions that we all heard and saw. So what?
Do you think Dr. Jeffries will agree with you on this topic with you and Jabari right here, right now? Because he's the elder and he go in.
Oh, he doesn't.
Use Dr. Jeffries.
He doesn't see.
You can't use Dr. Jeffries.
I cannot use Dr. Jeffries.
Why not?
Why not? He's older than 75.
No.
Heat on that. You're gonna get some heat in this.
No. See,
you're not even ready for the heat.
So you know what it is that Dr. Ben gave us instructions about running institutions, not of elder advice. Right. An elder advice is an elder till he ends. He may not run an institution, run a spiritual house, but he may still give advice. So, Brother Jabari, I can use Dr. Jeffries. Dr. Jeffries in the whole video will speak for himself about the instructions that we received to let you know that this conversation didn't start with Brother Reggie. This conversation started a while ago, and there are some issues that I have, but I didn't come here to make this personal. You should release your heavy heart. I think that I'm showing you, except for some minor spankings, right, that you are my brother, because I did not come here to savage you, and certainly not your wife, because I know you. But when things happen to Brother Reggie, I have a different way. I source the elders. I go to my elder, and I asks him to go into the mansion of the net to look at the esteemed elders, what they said, to recall it, I asked Dr. Jeffries, am I incorrect? You will hear his words when that video come up. So at this part, I'm going to rest, and you can still be angry. You can still be angry with me. You could still be angry with me because I said Ankh carriers. You could be angry with me because I said that some people can't read the Medu Neter. Oh, okay. You could be angry with me for all those things, but at the end of the day, cool. I'm showing proof.
Yo, Jabari, I gotta give that round to Reggie.
Stop it.
I'm telling you, Reggie came back.
Stop it. Stop it. Let me do it.
And he showed and proved.
Here it is.
He showed and proved, Jabari.
He still has something on.
All right, peace and Black Power family. We heard Reggie's response. We heard his rebuttal. And now we're going to go over to my brother Jabari for 30 minutes with another rebuttal. Brother, 35 minutes of his rebuttal of answering Dr. Reggie. Right now, I see it as a draw. I see it as a tie. Reggie came back hard body with round 2. And now we're going to see what it is with our brother. We're going to see what it is with our brother Jabari.
Could you tell me, how is Sonetta the commentator, the judge, Anyway, this is what I have to say, family. First of all, I don't want you to get caught up in Reggie's excitement, because he got really amped because Sonetta told him to turn it up. I hope you listened to what he was saying, because the reality is he wasn't saying that much. And what he did say today is radically different than what he said that caused this debate. So Brother Reggie wanted to come here to talk about the issues that we have been talking about back and forth on YouTube. The issues that he started with his challenge to Kemetic shrines, and then with a ludicrous video called Jabari Stand Down. He says that I'm in my heart. I have a heavy heart. I do have a heavy heart. because I did not expect to have to beat up my brother for 20 years in public. He and I have had debates constantly over the last 20 plus years. I didn't expect him to go out on 125th Street and say the disrespectful things that he said. And so Brother Reggie would like to make this about Stele. He'd like to make this about Papri. This is about the fact that Brother Reggie said many disrespectful things to practitioners of Kemetic spirituality. Let's get to what this is about. Because I know he'd like to say that it's about everything but that. But that's the problem. Let's start out with the fact that we know that he went out on 125th Street to issue a charge. There is one public shrine in Harlem, and that is the Shrine of Ma'at. You could say that there's also Baba Mfundishi shrine, but clearly he said he wasn't talking about Baba Mfundishi. So who else should we expect he's talking about? He says that he was talking about Ankh carriers. Left my Ankh in the back. He said he's talking to Ankh carriers. It's okay, it's there, leave it. He said he's talking to Ankh carriers. Clearly, he's talking about Brother Jabari and Sister Nika. And if he wasn't talking about Brother Jabari and Sister Nika, which I know he was if you listened, he was at very least being very disrespectful to our elder. And our elder is the elder priest of the Shrine of Ma'at. That's what he did. Don't let him try to tell you, I don't know why he's upset. I don't know what's going on. You watched the video. You know exactly why we're in the middle of this tussle. I didn't want to be in the middle of this with him. I did not. It bothered me that he did that. And you know what? I was already disappointed when he put his first video up. And then he puts up another video called Jabari Stand Down. How would you respond, family, if someone said to you, you should stand down? Like he's my general. That's what he did. So let's just agree on why we're having this conversation. He would like to tell you about everything else, but that's why we're here. He actually, not only did he issue a public challenge, he said our ceremonies, he didn't say I'm not talking about Brother Jabari and Sister Nika. He said these Kemetic dudes, their ceremonies are fugazi. Using disrespectful slang. By the way, if you said to someone on the street that they were fugazi, you'd have to fight. But because we are brothers, I would like to recognize, I want him to recognize that what he said was disrespectful and get past it. He said we make ish up. Now he wants to sound like it's about scholarship. Those aren't scholarly words. When you say something like that, then you should understand why I was offended. In addition to that, let's be very clear. Brother Reggie has not visited Kemetic shrines. He's making commentaries about Kemetic shrines. I've known him for over 20 years. He's never come to the Shrine of Ma'at. I've invited him to the Shrine of Ma'at. I invited Reggie to my Ankh ceremony. He did not attend. And guess what? I asked Baba Mfundishi whether Reggie had come to his shrine, come to see him years ago, and he said no. So if he has actually come to his shrine recently, Reggie should let us know. I know he hasn't been to the Temple of Anu. I know he hasn't been to the Soraset Society.
I watched it on YouTube.
He watched it on YouTube. Yeah. So that he thought that what he watched on YouTube is enough for him to issue a critique against our entire institution. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And you should, family, you need to tell your brother, if you want to talk about what they do, at least give them the honor of going and sitting with them and looking at what they do and then having a dialogue. So part of the reason why we're having this debate right now is because the nature in which he started it was disrespectful. That's why this is happening. You think I want to have this discussion with him in public? I have called him personally and said, I take issue with something you've done. You never heard about it here. I wouldn't put it out here. He did that. So please don't let him make this about something that it isn't. By the way, we have now seen Reggie speak to Baba Tehuti in Washington, D.C. We've seen him go and speak to, I know he's going to put up something with Dr. Leonard Jeffries. And we know he spoke to Baba Mfundishi. Brother Reggie believes that if you are over the age of 70, somewhere between 70 and 75, you should retire. Why is he talking to all of the elders if they should be retired? What he said was disrespectful. How dare you say that? Dr. Ben actually continued to support people and do things into his 90s. And I know he's going to say that's not what he said. I know he was going to say that. So let's play what he said. I'm going to take my time and play what he said. Because maybe he doesn't remember what he said.
I remember.
I don't think you do. Because if you did, you would not be questioning why Jabari takes issue with it.
Ben, yeah, but and Dr. Bennett said first, he had said basically once you hit 70, 75, you have to step down in the Nile Valley tradition. You have to pass the torch. You could be an advisor. I think that many of our elders who are over 74, 75, they should be advisors. They should be advisors. And they should do something that they don't often do, which we don't do, is raise up another generation of people and then let them do the work and then just advise them, right? Our elders, when it comes to science, many
That's
of
good.
them...
Now, family, I want you to hear this. He's gonna, and I know that Reggie's gonna dither because I know my brother quite well. And I know that's what he's going to do. He's going to dither. He's not going to answer clearly. Who was he talking about? He's going to say, I was talking about elders. They should be advised. You know very well who he's talking about. He was talking about Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samad Se Pata. Everyone knows it. Reggie is trying to, this is what I mean when I say he's a master shade thrower. That he throws weapons grade shade. That's what he does. And he does that. You knew what he was talking about. I knew what he was talking about. Baba Heru knew who he was talking about. He says several times in the video, he says things that reference Baba Heru Ankh Ra Samad Se Pata. Why would he do that? You don't do that to an elder. That's wrong. It's inappropriate. And so you need to understand why we are here. That's why we're here. Because what he did was disrespectful. And we have to make sure that when we talk about our elders, we are very clear about what they have, their meaning to us, what they've done for us. And we have to also make sure that we always are talking about them in an honorable way. He did not do that to Baba Heru.
I didn't mention his
And so that is, if you had mentioned his name, it would not have been shade.
It didn't matter.
Because if he had said it straight, it wouldn't have been shade. It would have been straight disrespect. You know very well what he was doing. In fact, even sitting here, he says he didn't mention his name. He did not say, I wasn't talking about him. Did you hear what he just said? I did not mention his name is what he said. Family, that's disrespectful. That is disrespectful. You can come back. You can. I didn't ask you a question. So if you want to come back, you can. Now he also said that I did not show you an actual citation, a definition. I gave you in my presentation a definition for proselytize. I gave you a definition, and I did show Billy Graham because what I wanted to do was to show you what proselytizing looks like. And I asked you, is that what we do in the Kemetic tradition? Obviously, you know that that's not true. You have never heard us say, if you don't follow our way, you're going to hell. We don't do that. We say, if you're an African, follow an African tradition. We don't actually speak ill of any other African tradition. Why? Because there are many practitioners in the Kemetic tradition who are also initiates of other traditions. That's what we're talking about here. Here's the definition versus religion and spirituality. I will not go through it again, but I want you to understand that Brother Jabari does not speak ill of people's religions or their spirituality. So that entire 10 or 15 minutes that he went on there was not for me.
I wasn't talking about you.
And so I want you to understand that he spent far too much time talking about that. This is a difference, though. There are some practitioners who say that Kemetic spirituality is not religion. And here's why. I want Reggie to hear this as well. Usually when you read the description of religion, it deals with a superhuman person. And so most times when people think of religion, they think of a guy in a cloud that's going to save you. Kemetic spirituality doesn't work that way. We believe that everything is energy and that you are the divine force. And so we believe that you should cultivate the divine force. And in actuality, you could cultivate the divine force in ways that are not specific to Kemetic spirituality. And so that's the reason why we often say that what we practice is not religion. You won't often hear Jabari say that. I say spirituality, but I'm not going to speak ill of someone who uses the word religion. I never will. So I just want to clarify that. He spent a lot of time talking about it, and it does not refer to me. By the way, he also says that he asked me to talk to me about how we see spirituality in ancient Kemet. That is not the question he asked me. He asked me, he said, check this out, right? Tell me the word for spirituality in the ancient Kemetic language, in the Medu Neter. That's what he said. And I said to him that if we're looking for the word for spirituality in the Medu Neter, you're going to be running on a fool's errand. And if you listen to what he just said, he agrees with me. He said it was comprehensive. That's exactly what my response to him was. I said, find the word for science in the Medu Neter in my presentation. The reality is that in ancient Kemetic traditions, they did not make these two things distinct because they thought that science and spirituality in many ways was two sides of the same coin. The term spirituality and the term science is Western. But that does not mean that the things that we call science today did not come first in excellence in ancient Africa. The world's first dentists, the world's first mathematicians, the world's first doctors come from ancient Kemet. Reggie talks a lot about STEM. The world's first, this is stuff we see in ancient Kemet. But many of those people are also priests. Priests that he would like to call dirty. I don't know why he's doing that. I think that's inappropriate and in many ways offensive. Brother Reggie also said in his presentation that the Kemetic tradition has not done anything, that instead the secular community is what led us to power. You've already heard me respond to that. I'm reminding you about it because Brother Reggie has not responded to it. Why? Because he knows that he's going to lose all day long, and he did lose all day long when we talked about that. He wants to make this about anything else than what this debate really is. Family, you know why you clicked on this video. Did Reggie even describe why you clicked on this video? You clicked on the video because he went on 125th Street and was disrespectful to practitioners of Kemetic spirituality. And then he put up another video that was disrespectful specifically to Brother Jabari. And Jabari responded. That's why you clicked on this video. And that's what you did not hear from Brother Reggie. That's what he'd like you to pretend that you didn't hear. This is the problem. Now, Reggie also said in his video that he's not meditating. He's not chanting. He's not wearing white. He said what we do is fugazi. But I actually showed you in my presentation, in the other video, how those things are directly connected to ancient Kemetic practices. How could it be fugazi? How we make an ish up? That's what he did. He's not going to talk to you about that because he knows that he will lose that all day long. So he would rather you try to forget that he said it and that Brother Jabari refuted it thoroughly. So thoroughly that Brother Reggie should have come in here on crutches. That's how thoroughly it was rebutted. But you know what he would like to do? He'd like to make this conversation about anything else. That's why we just spent 35 minutes, actually an hour and 10 minutes plus, talking about ancient Kemet and whether we actually are able to see the priests do something in ancient Kemet. That's not what he was doing. If Reggie said anything about the priest in ancient Kemet, it was one sentence in his first video, maybe two in his second video. This is about him speaking ill of spiritual practitioners. You know that. Don't let him do prestidigitation and fool you. Brother Reggie should be on 125th Street doing the shell game. He'd make a lot of money doing it. But you would be astute enough to find where the ball is, because that's what he's trying to do to you. We showed you the chantresses. Did Reggie talk about the chantresses? No. Why? Because he would like for you to forget that that is what we're talking about. He didn't talk about anything that we were talking about. That's the problem. And let's not even talk about wearing white. He even went and spoke to Baba Tehuti. Yes, I actually watch Reggie's videos. I don't know if he watches my videos entirely. But he went and spoke to Baba Tehuti down in D.C. and said he's never seen white. I mean, I guess maybe he's being metrosexual and he's going to disagree that there's white and off-white and, you know, it's not full white and all other stuff. This is Kemetic linen. And if you don't see a white cloth, I don't know what you're seeing. I don't know what you're seeing. The Kemetic people, particularly those people who were in spiritual traditions, were actually obligated to wear white linen. By the way, in ancient Kemet, it comes in other colors too. You'll see deshert shes. That's the word for red linen. So sometimes they wore red linen, but not in spiritual instances. They would only wear white linen. And they also, as I told you last time, wore white shoes. That's what this is about. Look at these brothers here wearing white. That's what this is about. That's what Reggie said he would not do and made fun of us for doing. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. So I don't know why he wants you to believe that we're talking about something other than what we're talking about.
That's in the afterlife, by the way.
These people are in the afterlife, Reggie? No.
Yes.
This person is in the afterlife.
Yes.
These people are priests, and these are mourners who are actually conducting the ceremony. He is wrong. It is not in the afterlife. This person who was in the Neb Ankh is in the afterlife. So please don't let him make you think that it's in the afterlife. Now, if he wants to talk about this image, yes, this person has made their transition. But yet, once again, they're wearing white. White is this is a no-brainer. If you've read anything on ancient Kemetic spirituality, you know that they had fine linens that were in white. In fact, they also wore white shoes. That's what you will see. That's what you will see. That's why we're in this conversation. That's why. Because what he wanted to do is he wanted to make fun of the spiritual traditions of Kemetic practitioners. You know that's why you're here. Try to make it sound like we were talking about people that lived 4,000 years ago.
Because they are people.
So I think that what we have to do is we have to make sure that we hold him accountable for what he said. He says a lot of things about Dr. Ben. Why has Reggie not responded to this quote that I gave? Maybe he didn't watch the video to the end. He always says that Dr. Ben actually, and he's reading it now, so that means he didn't watch the video to the end. So what I want you to do is recognize that this is what Dr. Ben feels. He is correct when he says that Dr. Ben cautioned us when we actually wanted to make these spiritual traditions live. That is absolutely true. But he did not say we should not do it. He wants us to be very careful about how we do it. Dr. Ben was my elder too. You don't think he took me to task when I told him I was practicing Kemetic spirituality? That was a private conversation that I had with him. And you know what else? I even told him that at that time, the person I was studying with, Baba Heru Ankh Rasamad Sepata. I don't think I even ever told Baba Heru what Dr. Ben said to me about that. He didn't say, I don't like this brother, I don't like what he does. He said, I know you're an astute brother. Dr. Ben met me at Cornell. I know you're an astute person that reads the history, that reads the language. I want you to make sure that Baba Heru stays the course. And my response to Dr. Ben was, I'm not checking Baba Heru. He's checking me. That's what my response. I've never said that out loud before. This is the first. I think the only person that knows that conversation is Anika, who might have either she was there or she was like in the next room. That's the conversation I had with him. He didn't say, oh no, you can't do this religious stuff. No, you can't do spiritual. He never said that. That's the reason why he received an Ankh from Baba Heru. These are the things that Reggie is not talking about. Please don't let this conversation be about something than what it is. Hold him to account for being disrespectful to an elder. He can change that. In our tradition, you can restore Ma'at. He's not beyond. He's not my brother because I think he did something that was that was wrong. He just needs to fix it. That's all. Reggie and I are not enemies, but he should fix what he did. That was insulting. And when your brother tells you that he was insulted by something you said, the first thing you should say is not, I don't know what you heard. the first thing you should say is, I'm sorry if you felt that way. What did I say that offended you? That's what you do. That's not what he's done. Because what he said was offensive. You heard it. Many of you who are watching this video right now text me about it before I even saw the video. So you know what this is about. What did Dr. Ben say? He said it is at this juncture that we can clearly see the total dependency of the so-called black Christians and black Muslims on the holy scriptures written, edited, and referenced by white and brown peoples from Europe, European America, and Asia who do not in any manner, shape, or form identify with black people on the same racial and or ethnic criteria. In other words, we see people in the Abrahamic traditions that are beholden to people who are not beholden to us, that are reading scriptures that are not about us. That's what Dr. Ben started this with. What does he continue with? He says, for not even one solitary page shows a solitary black man, woman, or child's black theology. The answer for the black man to return to his black family, who still remains in the Negro-colored church rests squarely in the gut bowels of his own black theology. Listen to the last words of this, which he must create and develop. If Dr. Ben didn't think that we should follow spiritual traditions that come from ancient Africa, why did he say we need to create and develop them? That's from this book. Our black seminarians and black clergy without a black theology. That's what this is from. This is where I'm taking Reggie to task. He didn't respond to it. That's what Dr. Ben actually felt.
Great man.
That's what he felt. And here, some of you have seen this. The members, the family, the Kemetic family did a ceremony for Dr. Ben in his nursing home. We didn't kidnap an old man to do that. You don't think he agreed to the ceremony? Of course he did. Brother Reggie challenges us because we actually are carrying ankhs, but we're not focused on ma'at. Do you see these two priestesses, Sanetta? Do you see, what are they holding in their hands? Sanetta, what is that they're holding in their hands? Do you know what that is?
What? Hold on. What are that? They hold. You moved it.
Oh, sorry.
What are that they holding in their hand?
What are they holding above Baba Dr. Ben?
Feather.
Yes, and particularly the ostrich feather.
Ostrich feather.
Because as we put these two feathers above his head, we are saying that Dr. Ben is doubly of ma'at. Ma'at is of critical importance to practitioners of Kemetic spirituality. Not less important than the ankh.
So real quick,
yes.
Reggie, would that look like a religious practice right there that's going on?
That's Baba Heru and his
What they doing right
shrines.
now?
That's their practice and interpretation, but Dr. Ben never said...
No, I asked you, I said, do that right there.
Does that look religious?
I can't tell by picture.
Well, this is the thing. This picture is from a video, so he should have watched the video on YouTube so he could actually see the ceremony we did for Dr. Ben. And once again, some of you are going to look at the video and say, I don't see Brother Jabari. You're not going to see me because I was behind the camera. You will hear my voice speaking to Dr. Ben. That's what you will hear. We did this ceremony for him when he was in his nursing home. So this is really what we should be talking about. We should be talking about the way that our brother has narrowly created this idea around Kemetic spirituality and then went ahead and insulted practitioners of Kemetic spirituality. That's what we should be talking about. How he was disrespectful to an elder. That's what we should be talking about. How he said that basically all of the things that people who practice Kemetic spirituality do are invalid. He says he speaks ill of meditation. He speaks ill of chanting. He speaks ill of wearing white. That's what he did. That's why we're here. Now, if he wanted to have another debate, he should actually have told Brother Jabbar that he wanted another debate. That's what he should do. And that is not, that is really what he needs to be called to the carpet for. He's my brother. He's not beyond redemption. He offended his brother. He offended people who actually respect him. I respect Reggie. I respect Reggie. I've said it many times. I have had respect for him for over 2 decades. But what he did was foul. So why doesn't he just make amends and say, look, regardless of whether we see everything the same, I did not mean to offend you. Why don't I listen to what you have to say? You listen to what I have to say, and maybe we can come to some sort of agreement. He did not do that and said he just did something in public. So this is really why we're here. And I also want folks for you to understand that with regard to what we're doing and whether it's connected to the Kemetic tradition of old, because Reggie continually says that we make stuff up, I want you to recognize that we actually read the text. We read it in English and in the Metanetter. And is it clear that everything that we do comes directly out of the ancient tradition? No. I told Reggie, and in my presentation, you heard me say that there are 3 criteria by which we decide what we should do. The first one is we do exactly what our ancestors did in the ancient world, or something very close to it. The second criteria is we create new ceremonies, new mannerisms that are directly connected to the principles or the ways. So it's not exactly what they did, but it's based on their philosophy, their spiritual thinking. And then the third thing that we should do is create that which our community needs. This is a living tradition. Those are the 3 criteria. Much of what I do has nothing to do with reading text or being a scholar. You've heard me say I'm a historian priest. Those are 2 different roles. Much of what I do is supporting people who need supporting. Doing the funerals, doing the weddings, counseling couples, counseling people, trying to help them be who they're supposed to be and assisting them when things go wrong. That's much of what my role is. I don't know if Reggie understands that, because he would only like to describe my role as a scholar. I'd like to say that I play that role well. But with regard to me being a hemnetter, it's very different. With regard to me being a hemnetter, it's very... I'm watching the clock. He's trying to say that's 28 minutes.
Oh, you got 28 minutes?
I've done 28 minutes. So I want him to understand that. And I think that if he understood that and understood that that's primarily what we do, maybe he would look at what we do differently. That's what we do. A brother who has been in the tradition for a long time called me today and said, I want my children to grow up in the tradition. And I was with the Shrine of Ptah, but the Shrine of Ptah doesn't have the kind of public meetings it used to have. So Baba Heru told me to go to either the Temple of Anu in Newark and to the Shrine of Ma'at, and even better, go to both. And so he called me to see when he could come by. That's the kind of stuff I do, working with young people. So I don't know why he thought that he should speak ill of those kinds of things. Maybe it's because he didn't understand that that's what we do. He thinks that all we do is like read. But that's what we should talk to him about. What's wrong with me trying to help someone who is in distress? What's wrong with that? That's what I do. And I don't know if he gets that. It's not, people aren't beholden to me in that regard. I'm beholden to them. The first word in hemnetter is hem, which means servant. I have to serve them. So anyway, hopefully we'll have some more dialogue around these issues. I really want us to make sure that we both understand what we do, because I actually think that if he comes into a better understanding, he won't be so quick to judge us. And I really hope that, family, you understand what we do. So that at the very least, whether you agree with us or not, you don't have to agree with us. You should recognize that what we're doing is important. So thank you so much. I think I saw Reggie wanted to ask a question or something. I still have some time left, but I'm ceding time. So if you want to ask a question. Yeah. Okay.
All right, family. We had 2 rounds going at it with Brother Jabari and Dr. Reggie. We've seen Reggie open up, and we've seen Jabari. We both witnessed the rebuttal rounds, and like I said, I give the first round to Jabari.
You don't need to do that. Just
I give the first round to Jabari. I give the second round to Dr. Reggie. Therefore, I give it a draw. The House of Consciousness has spoken. Black News 102, Sarnetta TV. I give it a draw. Now, anybody else, y'all can make up what y'all want. So the first question I have for Reggie. Now we at the part where both of these brothers will engage with each other and ask each other questions. And
Listen, he's my brother.
yes, no doubt. Now, see, I ain't got both mics out, but I'm gonna just bring out one mic. It's all right.
We on. One of the questions that I have for Brother Reggie, he used the term several times. He said that proselytization is going on. How do you see that Kemetic shrines are proselytizing? What do you mean when you say that?
Okay, so I'll give you an example, and it's just an example out in public, right? There are lots of people who do real hard work in this community, right, that deserve a reward, right? People in the black movement, fine. So for example, in several recent events, right? I can say unks were given out to Hebrews in public, right? Where we are having
Onks were given out?
Not unks, but sorry, unks, but no, it was their it was their symbols given out.
It was the Star of David.
It was their, well, they don't call it the Star of David, so don't be disrespectful to them.
Okay.
But it's their holy symbol was given out by one of our practitioners, right? The question is why? There's some other people I can't mention on this channel because we are having some real big arguments with, right? Mm-hmm. But things are being made to other people who are actually attack us. And then we question him about it, and then he has his own reason. There was just something that I saw when Divine Prospect and you were debating, right, here, and Elder Baba Heru was here, and he decided at some point to begin in talking Metanetra to the Hebrews, right? Things like that is basically we have a system, and maybe our system is better than yours, but we have a system. Some of those things is just I don't believe is necessary. The issue is me myself. If you call me and you offer me something, I say no. We get into a conversation. Don't try to you can't. If I say no, don't try to influence me. Don't influence me. Say, come down to my. Look, see, I don't want to talk about personal things like that, but because I have a background, I have a different type of background. I don't. If you want to say something, you want to ask me something, just say it. Don't just say it, whether you it's insulting or not. Just say it. Just say it. So there are lots of people now. Let's just take your shrine, your elder out of it. There are a lot of other things going on in the community, right? That are there are a lot of things going on in the communities that not your communities that people watch and pay attention to. So our system of the Nile Valley systems of education, those are for people who simply want to come in. We don't have to ask them to come in. We don't have to show anything. If when the pupil is ready, the master shall appear. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to do any dramatics. And there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of ceremonies and stuff on YouTube that people are watching. And some of those things are, listen, we just want to show you the good work that we're doing. Some of the other stuff is not so much as that. It's more ritual. So I have a concern. It would be the same concern that when I heard my elders talk about it. That's a concern. And I have something I'll tell you personally off the camera, right? That's really bothersome, but I have to tell you off the camera, okay?
This is not the question I had for you, but Reggie, how come when you always say your elder, it's like you disassociating yourself from the elder? Because I'm quite sure when Jabari sees Infidiji or whatever, he said, oh, these are my elders. So why you say your elder? Isn't Baba Heru your elder too, brother? Yes or no?
Yeah, no, see, the difference is...
No. Is Baba Heru your elder as well?
Yes. See, I don't want to make this personal, right? Baba Heru Samad is my elder and elder in the community. The question is, sometimes when we're talking about specific things of a particular personality. So, like there might be things that that Dr. Jeffries and stuff does that's just personal, etc. So, okay, so. So again, we keep going on and on and on, and you say, Brother Reggie, you was doing it to me, and I understand that's how you feel, and I just asked you to go into the Sabiat, to go into the teachings, and to ask yourself if you could understand my heart. I'm saying some things generally, not specific to you and your family. I'm in your place. Me and you are brothers. We never had an issue, but you're taking on all of it, and you're trying to protect all of the things that's happening. And I'm saying that there is, all you got to do is go into YouTube, look up Hoteppers, Hotep niggas, Hotep. There are a lot of people who are, because of bad conduct of others masquerading as something, attacks on the wisdom and the teachings of the stuff that we do. So the issue is, let's just ask you this. This is the issue. Or all people who call themselves Kemet or Kemetic, or all people who call themselves Kemet or Kemetic, priest, good, ancient, and modern, just because they call themselves that, does that fix it? Is that like holy water? Does that fix it? Someone's calling themselves a Kemetic. Can we criticize them?
I don't think anyone should be beyond critique. Okay. And I don't think anyone should be beyond excoriation if it's necessary. If you think that someone is doing something that's inappropriate, you should be able to actually call them out. I think that some of the people who you may be referring to are probably not people that most people would think are actually in the Kemetic tradition. And so sometimes what happens is there's a large net that is cast. And they say everyone is the same. By the way, one of those Hotepper videos, it's called the Ankh Right. Reggie is in that video. It's someone who is speaking ill of all of us who are focused on ancient Kemet. Reggie's in the video. I'm in the video. We're all in the video. Reggie is not someone who practices the spiritual forms, but he's in the video. They make no distinction. My issue is not whether you challenge people or not. My issue on one hand is how you challenge them. And my issue is who you challenge. Because I think that everyone knows that for much of what you're talking about the person as the elder priest of the Shrine of Ma'at. If you're talking about my elder priest of my institution, you should expect that I'm going to say something. You should have expected that it was going to be me that was going to say something. I don't know why you didn't expect that. I think that some of what you said was disrespectful. I know you don't agree. You don't have to agree. But I think that if your brother, someone who you profess to care about, is saying that your words harmed them, you should at least want to hear how your words harmed them. That's ma'at. I'm not saying you will agree with it, but at the very least you should say, if my words cause terror, and you know exactly what I'm referring to, then I want to restore ma'at. And I don't think that you've done that. And so that's the part that offends me. It's not beyond recompense. We're not beyond reproach. You're still my brother. But I just want you to understand that some of what you said was hurtful. You said that we, even when you described us proselytizing, I don't know if you're using the definition of what proselytizing is. You disagree with someone who gave a religious symbol, a spiritual symbol to someone in another house. And that's just the opposite of proselytizing. Proselytizing is when you say our way is the only way. But if an elder comes to a place and gives people who are in another tradition their symbol, that's the opposite of proselytizing. What he was actually attempting to do, and family, if you know he's talking about Baba Heru Ankara Samadse Pata. What he actually did was he was trying to show that we don't have to be uniform and still show care for each other. You might disagree with what he did. He's not beyond critique. But that's the opposite of proselytizing, and you should recognize that it is. If I'm giving you your symbol, I'm not saying you have to follow my symbol. So that's just how it is. Now, maybe he thinks that we shouldn't tell anyone this is what we do, come join us. And if that's what he feels, then even Jabari is guilty of proselytizing, according to your definition. I don't agree with that being the definition of proselytization. I think that if you're part of an institution and you tell people this is what I do, maybe you want to do it too, then that's it. We didn't say that's the only thing you can do. So that's how I take it. So now, did you ask me a question? Yeah, I answered your question. So now I get to ask you a question. Okay.
Well, okay, yes, okay, go ahead.
With regard to the spiritual traditions of ancient Kemet, why is it that you believe that you don't have to engage in any of the meditation, the chanting, the prayer, any of those things that are ceremonial or ritual? You say that you don't have to do those things. And in fact, you've even spoken ill of people who do. As someone who has studied it and studied it for as many years, can't you see that at least we're trying to do something that our ancestors did? Why do you think that you shouldn't do it?
Good question there, brother.
Well, sometimes when you're actually doing a debate or you throw things out just to see, but you don't like my metaphors when we're talking. You like it when we're throwing metaphors at the Hebrews and the Moors and other people. You understand what I'm saying? Like I was getting ready to say that when we debate, right, sometimes we cast a net so that we can actually have a conversation, right? Those things that are within your practice, those are within your practice. When you put them out into public, then we can see and look back, and then as people who actually study, we can actually kind of match it and see what's good and what's not good. So there's more than meditation. It's meditation. It's rituals. It's things like that. So that it's a how can I say, it becomes holistic, right? Now, some people want to do these things and they don't read the Medinecha, they don't source the Medinecha. They absolutely feel that it is connected to the Nile Valley because they are doing it, or because they saw something on the wall and they actually feel that that's a part of it. And I'm just saying, it is meditation, it may be yoga, it may be all of those things, right? I'm trying to what part?
I'm asking why you don't feel that. I'm not saying you have to do what I do. I'm saying, why do you feel that what your ancestors did are things
because
that you have to do?
I'm not
saying why you don't have to do it with me or with anybody else.
Wait, I'm not a religious practitioner. So that's part of the answer. I'm not a religious practitioner, so I don't feel that I have to do anything.
Why?
Because I'm not a religious practitioner. I could say if I was doing, even if I was meditating.
But Reggie, if it's a part of Kemet, that's what he was saying.
No,
that's
we don't. Trying to ask. Show me a footnote. Show me a footnote that it happens the way it is. Most of the time, people see a drawing and then they build on something that they were already in, and then they bring it in and they say that it is part of that tradition. That's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily true.
But
I don't understand.
You're not answering my question.
I answered your question. I said that wait. I am not.
Can I tweak it? Yes. Because maybe you think I'm asking you something I'm not. I'm not saying why do you not do it with me or why you not do it with someone else. I'm saying why, because you read the Metanetter. You could do it on your own and say I don't agree with those people do. This is how you do it. I'm saying how come you don't do those things that the ancestors did? You could disagree with how we are doing it. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't agree with everything that every shrine does.
By the time you do a ritual ceremony, I could probably read a book, right? I don't think a ritual ceremony is going to actually do any. I could read a book. I could read Theophilo Benger's a chapter or two by the time that it could be Christian. Let's take Nile Valley out. Christian, Islamic. By the time you do a whole ceremony or one of these whole openings, I can sit down and read a book. I think that we live in a different type of age where we have to collect a lot of information, assess a lot of information, and do a lot for the little bit that we have. So why does Brother Reggie, and I don't have to answer to you.
You did answer the question. Yeah. That's an answer.
So
that's what I was trying to get.
Now, I do want to respond. Can I respond to you?
You have the mic. Go ahead.
Dr. Ben wrote a paper on the mystery system, and he did it in a lecture, and he said this: men under 7 and over 70 were barred from participating in the Warath system. Anything the system was taught was for the masses, the benefits. So he, when he talked to us, he talked about having a position in a system. And he says when you're over, you can't be admitted to 7 years old, and you have to begin to exit by 70 years old. That's just a teaching that he had. That's in being in a craft. In what he was talking about when he was talking about the Egyptian mystery system. So that is that's a direct quote. So when I'm quoting something from you now are taking it. You are now taking personal. There are always exceptions to the rule.
Taking what personal? What?
Meaning because you're thinking I'm just talking about Baba Heru. But I'm not talking about, I'm talking about all of our elders. Dr. Leonard Jeffries, for example, when he began to approach a certain age, people were asking, Dr. Jeffries wants to do everything, and he does do everything, right? But there's some things that other people may be able to do better and faster, right? And so there were big issues recently. For example, in the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization, there was a.
Shouldn't say that on camera.
Yeah, well, I'm being honest and truthful. There were conflicts about when you reach a certain age and your capabilities. And sometimes that age is not 70, sometimes that age is 75, sometimes that age is something else. And then you find another position, you can compromise and find another position. So what I said was right and correct based on the teachings that I read. I don't call him Jabari, I call him Brother Jabari. He can call me Reggie. But we were talking, I was talking in my talk in part 1 about how priests usurped ancient Kemet, and it caused the 3rd intermediate period ultimately, and that there was situations where the Amun-Ra priests were appointing their family members as high priests, that they were mismanaging the resources and getting away with it. Crimes were being committed. Crimes.
I mean,
yeah. When you do Pianki, when you find Pianki, when you if we can always come back and do some work, but the fact of the matter is, when does a priest become a co-regent? That had not happened before. The king is the Horus. It is specific to the sacred myths of the Nile Valley about how that comes. There has never been a co-regency unless, for example, it was a child over a parent. But 2 grown men and then dividing up the 2 lands,
something was incorrect about that. So my answer to you is, the problem is we have to be very careful. For us to win our intellectual battles and from other people, we have to be honest about wrongdoing. We can't just say, you might ask Jabari a follow-up question, right? Was that process good for Kemetic? I think he might have answered it. I think he believes that some of it was good, right? But you can answer again. But my thesis or my abstract that I put forth to the community was what destroyed ancient Kemet. Kemet became basically a one dominating religion over all of the other sciences and systems, and that caused an enormous strain on ancient Kemet. And Akhenaten, the Nasut Akhenaten, I don't think that he caused that revolution because things were going right. He was pressured, and that's his response. The aspect of the afterlife and the aspect of the human dealing with nature.
Similar, like you would say that's religious.
Yeah, no.
Ceremonies that they practice in the afterlife.
First of all, the real question is that one might ask was, just because they did it, was it real? Now, I could respect what they did, but to say, in fact, was it real?
No,
what does real mean?
No, it's not. No,
what is real? What do you mean when you say real?
The people really do that. That's what he said.
No, I don't understand. So the issue is that is their that was their reality in dealing with the afterlife, and the reality of dealing with the afterlife, that means connecting to entities outside, or becoming an effective ak, a sahu, right? In the afterlife, changing energy. All that has to do with one part. Another part of how humans deal with humans, right? Do you feel me? We use this word. Do you feel what I'm saying? Do you feel my heart, right? Even when you don't want to. Or maybe you will never feel my heart. But the fact of the matter is that has something to do with, in science, where we look to see how to prove it, we might call that entanglement, quantum entanglement, right? Or there's something else that's happening. We can't necessarily, but let's see what we can use to frequency, right? What rapport. Let's see the things that we can use to do it. So my answer is, what the ancient people of Kemet did, I respect. I have high regard. I completely try to understand what they do. I actually try to relate it to science.
There's a but coming though. Or however.
And that was their ecology. In this society, right, we have a different ecology. We have different problems to solve, right? And we have different tools that we can solve it. And then even with that, I am not so much against proper practice that can actually be footnoted. The problem is when you allow people just so much creative license, then ultimately you will run into problems. Because then people say, no, it's this way. Because now it's the Messiah. I'm like, I'm reborn. I'm that person. I'm the new head. And we have that. We have that in our community where people follow in, and we've seen it. Watch this. Why, when we see it in other systems like Jim Jones in Guyana, why do we
see what you're doing though, Reggie? When you say because our ancient Kemetic ancestors did it, don't mean that I have to do it, and don't mean that it was right. It's like you picking.
No, we have lots of traditions.
Hold on.
We have
like.
Yeah, I'm picking and choosing.
Choosing what to follow and what not.
We do.
But if we're going to say the whole of ancient Kemet and our science was right, then we got the...
No, see, Dr. Jeffries, I asked Dr. Jeffries about this. He was dealing with Haile Selassie, and he was dealing with in modern Egypt, right? And he was talking about the ecology of black African leaders coming together to solve problems, but they were doing on a political side, on a political theater. And the fact of the matter is, they're all they all have their cultural steps. You can't impose Kemet on what's already happening in Africa. You cannot do that. Mm-hmm. What you can do is try to find a system of continuity. That's my point. My point is, if we are creating another religion, gets us out of step with first the other religions, right?
But who's creating a religion now?
Oh, in America, if we are creating, if we're creating something that you call Kemetic religion and spirituality, we are creating. See, ik. Do you know what the word ik, the suffix ik means?
Ik, read.
Yeah, like metallic,
read.
Like Kemetic. Do you know what the suffix ik mean? Well, it basically
related to.
Yeah, related to, having properties of. But it's not the same thing. It's like the same thing, but it's not having the properties. So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
There's a lot I want to ask you, but I think I'll go here. I mean, when I look at people and what they do in the world, I see Christians who follow a tradition that comes out of the Mediterranean region. I see people who are Jewish or Hebrew who follow tradition and come out of the Mediterranean region. I see Muslims that follow tradition and come out of Mediterranean region. I even see people who are now practicing Norse traditions that come out of the Germanic areas. And when I see all those people and I see them practicing or using their traditions wherever they are in the world, when I hear you say that what they did, meaning the ancient Kemetic people did, is not something that fits here, I hear you actually rendering our traditions as less than those traditions, because I can't see how those positions have application in 2018 at all if you're saying that ours don't. So that's one challenge I have for you. And so here's my question. When you look at the Seba'it literature, the wisdom literature of ancient Kemet, and you see things like wisdom, don't be arrogant with your wisdom. The greatest wisdom is found amongst the women at the grindstone. I know you know that's Ptahhotep. And you see how not to deal with a man who was angry, how to deal with a man who was more powerful, how to deal with someone who was less powerful, how to give to people. Aren't those universal principles that come out of the Kemetic tradition? What's wrong with using those things? Why is it that you feel that our traditions are restricted to a time period and a locale, and the other people all over the world are able to use theirs wherever they are?
You can use those, and other cultures have used them. I showed you with Amenhotep, and I showed you the how can I say, the path of life, right? I showed you that. Other traditions have borrowed that and stolen that. You can do all those things and not be religious. You don't need to cloud it. You don't have to put a wrapping around good practice and morality and good things. You don't have to religiousize it. You just have to do it. You just have to do Ma'at, speak Ma'at, hear Ma'at, right? And even if it's not called Ma'at, if someone else thinks it's Islam, do Islam, speak Islam, right? Live Islam. If it's Hebrew, do that, right? Do that practice. The fact of the matter is, once you religiousize it, then you relate it to a God. Now, I am RB.
Damn, here come the doctor. Oh man, I gotta get out, man.
I am RBG, red, black, and green.
Here come the doctor, Reggie.
I have been.
You better apologize.
No, she does. No, he does not have to.
Okay,
please.
I am red, black, and green. I have most of my large part. I have been involved in the freedom fight. I also find that a lot of religious traditions take you out of the fight, have you deal with the afterlife, and have you deal with other things. So they take you out of the fight. They actually, okay.
So what you mean when you say they take you out? Like when you start studying Kemet and stuff?
Yeah, they take you. They take. See, we can use Kemet as an example. The matter is, black struggle in the United States has been going on right now.
She's going back up. Is that her?
Yeah, that's her. That's definitely her.
I don't want nobody else coming in.
Yeah. So the black struggle has been going on. No one's going to say that people are going to say people struggling. Nobody's going to say that any particular tradition or religion has led necessarily the black struggle. The Christians may begin to say that, but then they get stopped. The whole fact of the matter is that in the 50 years of Nile Valley tradition, or of these of temples and shrines. And here's the thing, Jabari, when I talk, here's the thing. A temple, you know, I mean, man, it ain't got to be so hard, man. A temple is something that you see, you look at, it's an architecture. It's a temple. A shrine may be inside a building, and it may be a storefront. When I use temple or shrine, I'm basically saying a system of practice. I'm not directing it to you. And I keep trying to say it, but you want me to put it all on you and what you're doing. I do have some issues. And for example, I have been to Osiris Set several times. I have been there for ceremony. Yeah, for their ceremonies several times with Dr. Jeffries. And of course, I've been to Nana Jenny Zulu's. That's not Kemetic.
To ceremonies with Dr. Jeffries at Asaraset?
That's correct.
You're not talking about celebrations. You're talking about ceremony.
They do ceremony and celebrations.
Okay, I think you're talking about something different than what I'm talking about.
See, here's the thing. Most of the time for a ceremony that you're talking about, you have to be maybe a member of it. But here's the thing is, I have been, you're telling me that they would not allow the great Dr. Jeffries in a ceremony? And I've been to celebrations that were ceremonies that's in it.
I don't think we're talking about the same thing. Okay. I'll explain.
I'm not.
You say what you're saying.
Yeah, we're not. Okay, here's the thing. We are not religious. So
Who's we?
Dr. Jeffries is not religious.
Really?
No. Okay. I'm not religious. Right? I was brought up in that tradition. Dr. Clark was not religious, right? But we would respect what was going on, but we just participate as black people.
Know what? You said something here. This brother.
Okay, so brother Jabari, real quick, man. Do you consider yourself to be a religious teacher? And you could go on to say what after that, because when Reggie said Dr. Jeffries is not religious, you went like oh, what? He ain't religious. Like, that is the norm. Like, they supposed to be religious. So are you saying, are you a religious practitioner with the Kemetic? Because if so, then all along Reggie been right. So
I think that when you saw me flinch when he said that is because I also know Dr. Jeffries. I don't pretend to know Dr. Jeffries as well as Reggie does. Dr. Jeffries was connected to his institution. So I would assume, I know that he knows Dr. Jeffries better than I do. So I'm not even questioning that. But from what I know of Dr. Jeffries, I would be surprised if he says he's not religious in this sense, because I think that Reggie is trying to say that whether you use religious or spirituality, he's talking about the same thing. He doesn't want to dither on the words. And so if we're going to say that he's referring to the same thing, then I would say that both of those people he mentioned, Dr. Clark was also my elder, by the way. He's also someone that I worked with, that I studied from, that I knew. I would be surprised. I'd be surprised if Reggie knew him better than I did. It's possible he did. I'd be surprised. But I'll say to you that it is important for us to recognize that when most people say religion, they're talking about the application to an individual personality. So a guy on the cloud. There are no Kemetic practitioners that I know that subscribe to that belief, because a fundamental principle of the Kemetic tradition, by the way, this is something that Reggie said in our discussion that I disagreed with, a fundamental concept of Kemetic spirituality is that you are divine and that is something that you are, not that someone else is it or the divine is outside of you. That's a fundamental practice of Kemetic spirituality. So that's why I would say I don't call myself a religious leader, but if someone called me a religious leader, I wouldn't say, "Don't never say that to me." I wouldn't argue, I wouldn't beat them up, because sometimes people do use the word interchangeably. But I do believe that there is a distinction that could be made between religion and spirituality. Okay. Now, and I think I get to ask you a question now. Right?
Yeah, you do. I would just
okay
with what I'm going to say. Yeah.
I think that Reggie is actually, when he says that he can practice the moral codes of ancient Kemet without any of the ceremony, what he's done is he's saying that he is choosing what is important. Because our ancestors did not make distinctions and say, this is the moral teaching, this is what you do, this is spirit. And so I think that what he's doing is he is reading chapters 1, 4, 6, and 8, and he's not reading and appreciating the entire book. And I think that that's a problem. He knows that he and I have that issue. So my question is, Reggie,
stab me, and then he asks us a question.
It's related to the question, though.
Yes.
It's related to the question. You've been doing that too. You've been adding stuff and then come on now. He don't just ask a question to hand me the mic. He's giving me the context. He's giving me the context. Here's the question. The question is, would you agree that the people who gave us that moral text also told us that we should practice ceremony? Would you agree that those people who said these things are sacred and you should follow them also said you should do these things as well? Would you agree with that?
I'm going to first try to add to the first part, and then I'll come back. Look,
just remember the question.
I'm going to come back.
I'm not going to let you slide on it.
Yeah, I know you're not. The Amun-Ra priest did something very interesting, and this will be bothersome to a lot of people. They usurped the king. The king was move that back. The king was the king in ancient Kemet was the divine. It was the king in ancient Kemet that was divine. The people, they were granted an afterlife. How you doing, sister? They were granted an afterlife by the king. It's called the Hotep di Nosut, an offering that the king gives. And based on their service, they would get an afterlife on the behest of the king. So it was the people, it was the king who was the divine representative on earth, and then it was the Netters and the Neteru. So this later situation, so this later situation of democratizing spirituality was also an issue of the Amun priest that caused a problem. For example, everybody reads this book, Budge's Book of the Dead, right? But if you read it carefully, if you read the history of it, the book wasn't written for Annie Anui. He's a scribe. His name was inserted. It was really the great work in it was written for the king, and they just inserted his name, and that is part of the democratizing. And so what that did was it took off some of the sovereignty of the king. So now the priesthood gets involved, and they begin to be the manipulators. They manipulate. Well, if you don't do this for us, you're not going to write we're not going to give you the book. You're not going to get afterlife. If you don't pay us this amount of money, you're not going to do this, do that. Or when it comes to kings, well, we can make it happen for you. You marry this. All you have to do is marry this woman or this royal, and we're going to make it happen for you. There's a lot of democratizing and breaking away the sovereignty of the king. So this book, Annie, is not. There's nothing holy about Annie. He was a scribe. He wanted to buy a paradigm haru for the afterlife. They fit his name.
They fit his name in where they could. In some places, it didn't fit. However, the great concept of it was for the king. And the Amun-Ra priests began to manipulate the royals, the people around it, the stewards, and they made sure, well, we give you this book, you'll get an afterlife. Most of the other people, they were in service of the king, and that is, I think that you can check that out, whether you agree or disagree. So the Ba Nikah, in the ancient text, you will only see the Hotep Dinar Sud. Hotep Dinar Sud is pretty much all that you're gonna get on funerary. That's what you're gonna get. If I'm wrong, you show me up until the part of the coffin text. And coffin text is that's when they begin to show favoritism with the royals, but not the regular people.
You gotta pay attention if you're asking questions. You know, don't be on your phone.
He's not the regular people. So now the second part of the question is, what would our ancestors want us to do?
That's not what I asked you.
As far as ceremony.
No.
As far as ceremony.
What I asked you was, when you see them with the moral text and things that are correct, and you agree with those, the moral text, didn't they also tell us that the ceremony and the ritual was important as well?
In some cases, in some cases they did. In some cases, they talked about, for example, the Tepeseb. In the Tepeseb, when they talk about the correct method, they're not talking about ritual. They're talking about doing things. I just, again, even if they said that, Brother Jabari,
You would ignore that part of it.
I probably would.
Okay, that's a clear answer.
I probably would ignore it, and I think, and I'm not, this Uncle Keck is the real black atheist, right? So I'm a little bit more sensitive. I have much more respect, and when he's a real black atheist, he's not against African spirituality and African. He's against something else. He also has a respect for it, but I would ignore. I think sometimes man, I don't want to be disrespectful, so I will just say it because everything I say is
You were
disrespectful.
clear at least. That wasn't disrespectful.
Everything now.
No. No, I don't want you to feel that way, because the reality is we've been speaking for many years. Listen, wait. I did cut your ass. No. But listen. You and I have been talking. You and I have been talking for over 20 years. I always say it's 15, but you know what? We're older than I think, because when I thought about when I met you, it had to be in the mid-90s. It was after I graduated is when I first met you. So, because I remember you were at the table when I got the book for Anika that helped her learn the Medunetter. That had to be 95 or 96. So, because you were there, and so it was at Seku's table. That's where it was. So I've known you longer than. But this is the point. This is the point. I have almost never felt that offended by what you said. We can disagree, but what you said in these videos, I literally felt offended by, and I tried to explain why. And whether you agree with it or not, I want you to at least look at it and say, if this is how my brother feels, if there's anything that I could have done to be clearer, not to offend him, perhaps that's what I should have done.
You as a Himnetra Tepi, as someone who studies the text, if I was the respondent, you had a choice. What you did was you came in and you said lots of things that you still stand on, which I didn't come into your house to deal with, right? About talking about my work and who I am. If I wasn't significant, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. I'm very significant.
I didn't say you weren't significant.
You say, and then you say
no.
I knew.
I said I met Dr. Clark in 1990.
You met Dr. Clark in 1990? That's fine. I met Dr. Clark in 1985, right? Now, you was in
But wait.
When you was in.
But you asking, I said I'd be surprised if you were closer to him.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, the length of time you've known him doesn't necessarily mean that you were closer.
Fine. Dr. Clark went to my father's funeral. That's a very intimate, this is before Sister Sybil. He went to my father's funeral. When I got married, Dr. Clark and Sister Sybil at that time gave us a wedding gift. How can I say a gift? in Dr. Clark, when he was going blind, before he was going blind, I had a significant relationship with him. He would call me if there's anything in Schaumburg where he worked. Right, like for example, Bishop Tutu showed up. He said he called me. He wanted an escort. He wanted to make sure he met Bishop Tutu again in his life, and I was there. I had been related, and then certainly when he was blind.
I want you to hear this. Yes. I want you to hear this. I hope you understand this. First of all, both of my parents are still alive, so I have not had the opportunity to have any of them come to there. I'm saying, first of all, that both of my parents are still with the living, so there was no opportunity for any of those great scholars to come to that. And when I was married, they were already gone. Yeah. Right? So I want you to understand that some of my relationship occurred outside of your perception. And I think that was when you said that you would spend time with Dr. Ben and I wasn't there. That's what you said. I want you to
When did I say that?
I can play the video. You did say it.
I said Jabari?
And you said Jabari wasn't there, is what you said. And so I want you to understand that. Okay, so it's the same but wait, let me say this. My relationship with them began 5 hours away. I did not go to City College. If I'd gone to City College and you were there, you probably would have seen us together, right? When Dr. Clark would come to campus, and he often did because both Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben were professors emeritus at Cornell. When they would come to campus, I would walk Dr. Clark around campus. He would tell me, he would expect me to be there. There was one time he came and I didn't even know he was coming.
Okay, we have both
and he was a Dr. Clark. But I want you to say, my point is not to say I knew them better or you knew them better. My point is to say that
you just said that, and that's why I responded.
No. That was not. Here's my point. Yes. Here's my point. The point is that when you say that you knew them, I'm trying to say to you, so did I. And your analysis of their positions, I do not share. That is the point.
Okay.
That's the point.
I have a tape.
But I want to respond to what you said.
Okay.
Because you said that in the Hotep Dinasu, the king grants the afterlife. I would say you are incorrect. The king is giving an offering. In order to give someone an offering, they would have to be in the afterlife. So I think that you are misinterpreting what the Hotep Dinasu is. By the way, when you look at ancient Kemet in the pre-dynastic era, you will see burials of common people. They are not as lavish. They are not as amazing.
That's not what I'm saying.
But wait. What I'm saying to you is that you are saying that earlier in Kemetic history, before the power of the priest of Amun, that people didn't have access to the afterlife. And I'm challenging you on that, because when you look at the burials of the common people in ancient Kemet before the kingship, and even before the priest of Amun raised to that level, they have simple burials because they don't necessarily have a lot of money to be able to do that. But the concept of the burial predates Kemet. They all believed that they had access to the afterlife. And I think that you need to recognize that. You also said that the priests were able to choose who the king marries. That's not really accurate, because for the most part, when a king was chosen, they were either the offspring of the lady that had the royal blood. The king wouldn't have to choose anything about that person, because if you were the offspring of that lady, you'd be able to marry anyone you want virtually. But there were times that the person that was to be king was not the offspring of the lady with royal blood. And so what you would do then is you would marry someone who did have the royal blood. You're making it sound like the priests are the ones that are the intermediaries, and they tell you what to do. And I don't think that it's actually as didactic as you've described it, because the reality is, you know who has the royal blood. If the lady who has the royal blood had 2 daughters, you could marry either of them. The priest wouldn't say you must marry this one and not that one. This was a system that was defined by bloodline. I'm not saying the priest didn't assist with describing it, but you're making it sound like they manipulated it in order to take control over the king. And I don't think that you can find that kind of description. anywhere. Now, here's my question. In terms of, you have said things like there's a murder cult in regard to the priest. You talk about them being violent and having wars. Can you show us where proof that the priest killed anyone? Because I think that is a really, really offensive slur to put on someone without proof. Is there proof that the priest killed anyone, or is that simply your implication that you believe?
Yeah, in both. I can give you a reference. I'll just
I'm not saying you can do it right now.
Right. But the issue is that when you start looking at this whole situation with Armana and the deep hatred that groups had on Akhenaten and his family, they completely disappeared. Not only did they disappear, when you actually find the royals, most of these things are hacked, meaning the burials are hacked. So there was a huge war that went on, a violent and bloody war. But to say
it's violent and bloody. I mean, violent and bloody means you're harming someone. You're talking about monuments.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about Horemheb. Horemheb is a noted general that basically erased Atenism from.
But did you see?
Yeah.
Reggie,
yes.
How can you say violent and bloody? I'm asking you, is there any proof that the priest harmed anyone?
Yeah, here's the thing. So let's look at the popes and because you always want to
jump to the pope.
Yeah, because I'm just talking about Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark. They talk about murder cults. That's not my word. That's Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark's term. You're hearing on a video from Dr. Jeffries. Dr. Jeffries talking about it as to when I asked him what did Dr. Ben perceive. This is not my words. These are not my words. These are my teacher's words that I'm just using. Okay, so yeah. So that's that.
But here's my challenge to you, though, Reggie. I don't think that we have any proof of anyone killing anyone. Some of that is made for suspense and excitement, but it's not based in what we find. Like for a long time, they said that the king on your shirt, Tutankhamen, was murdered. But the more that we study, the more that we're believing that he was not murdered. For a lot of times, they said he was murdered because they saw something dark in the back of his skull. But now that they've done had a closer look at it, it's believed now to be resin that was used during his sahuification, his mummification process. Okay. So it wasn't like he got a blow to the back of the head. So what I'm saying is that sometimes I think historians get bored. I think that most people aren't interested in history. So what they do is they actually make things exciting by adding intrigue and things like that. And half the time, the stuff that they're adding is not based on any real historic or substance. They can't tell you anybody was killed. Can they tell you that somebody destroyed a monument? Yes. By the way, I don't think that the priest would destroy a monument. That wasn't their role.
Your paradigm or good.
No, I did not say that. I did not say that. But what you've done is you've gone in the other direction. Priests are human like everyone else. You went to the extent to call them the dirty priest of Amun.
In a sense that they challenged the sovereignty and they took over the kingship. And I
don't listen. Yeah. This is kind of this little bit about whether they challenged sovereignty and they took over the kingship for themselves. You and I could have a greater discussion on that, because I think that I disagree with your assessment.
Okay, you can disagree. You heard my thesis. You can disagree. I'm just telling you.
So you and I I think we should have a deeper conversation about that. I don't know if it's going to be as interesting for the family, but I think that it would be something that.
Here's the thing. It's going to go into the public domain. But the paradigm is that let's look for the reasons why Kemet failed. What the Amun-Ra priests ultimately did in Kemet, as far as taking control of Kemet, was not the norm, and that and then these foreigners coming in, and all of a sudden they're being crowned by, you can only be, because there's people, otherwise the people will revolt. There's a group of people that have enough influence over the people that's allowing these leaders to, these foreign leaders to take positions. And even like with the Persians, when the Persians came in, they, the current Nasser that was standing, they took him back and they executed him, the Persians.
But you're saying that the priest did something, had something to do with it.
Oh, yeah, the priests capitulated. They corroborated.
The priests were shook just like anybody else. The priests don't defend you. Your soldiers do. If you win with an army, the priests aren't the ones that are going to take up arms.
So they're not concerned about the afterlife. They're concerned about the current life. That means they're corrupted.
No.
That means they want to live.
It means that priests will be killed just like anyone else.
So let them. That's in our nature of our fight, right? That we are here. We know that some of us at points may have to die in fighting for our liberation. There's things that we will not subject ourselves to, but you have the people who have the most holiest text giving foreigners the right to rule in the meta-nature. It'd be different if it was Persian. And so you don't like it, but it's something that our community, we can actually talk about. Okay? So we agree. So can we close?
I think we're going to need to. I think we're going to need to. Let me just say this one thing, and then you could say something too if you want, Reggie.
No.
Let me say this to you. This is a brother that I respect, and even if you looked at the video where I told him off, I still said I respect him.
But you told me off.
I still respect him. I respect. But listen. But let me say this. But let me say this. But let me say this. Let me say this.
There's a list of people that
everybody knows, Reggie. Come on, man.
That's not true.
Listen. Let me say this. Even in that video where I told you off, the reality is that I still said I respect your ability in the language. And I respect your ability in your knowledge and your study. I said that.
No, but you said nobody uses my stuff. So
No.
Yeah, that was a shot.
What I said, it was a shot, and I'm gonna stand by it. Because what Reggie said is, I'm not doing this work so people can build a religion. And I said, what work are practitioners using of yours? And I stand by the fact that we're doing our own work. You may not be familiar with it, but we do our own work. In fact, the other thing about these traditions is that sometimes there are even things that we're writing. Do you know that I've written more than one book?
Brother,
there's only one of them, but listen to me.
Putting it all on
But
yourself.
here, you have to. He has to hear what I'm saying. But did he read it?
No, because I asked him to give it to me.
So he stole the book.
I had to give it to somebody.
Do you know he's taken a bunch of he has a bunch of my books that he keeps?
He does that, but he gives them out. But he was asking
because I'm giving it to other scholars again.
Okay, I will never complain if you give Professor Smalls a book.
Right.
But let me say, but here's what I want to say in closing. Here's what I want to say. I was really offended by what you said. Brother. I stand by being offended by what you said, but I still respect you. I would like for us to get, let me finish. I would like for us to be able to move forward in a way that you are able to actually experience respectfully what practitioners do. Because I think that if you actually come and listen to what's happening, you would actually... No, I am not proselytizing. I didn't say you have to be a member. I said we have things that happen in public. Listen.
I'm not going.
Listen to what I'm saying. If you cannot listen to what people are actually saying, then how can you critique them? He's saying he won't go. But if you don't listen to what we're doing, then how can you critique it? That's like, no, that is not the same thing.
What, the spirit?
That is not the same thing. Because you have to understand, I have initiates that are here for 14 weeks, 3 hours a week, and we work with them. That stuff is not public. Let me finish. Almost every shrine does that. Mm-hmm. He has no idea what we're teaching. He has no idea what we're preaching. Now listen, our Kemetic Ascension is online. They're all on YouTube, all on Facebook. They're broadcast publicly. Would he have to actually step foot in a room with other practitioners? No. But I guarantee you he's not looked at our Kemetic Ascension videos. What I'm saying is, if you don't know something, how can you critique it? That's what I'm saying to you. And I'm not saying you have to become part of the tradition. I'm saying, how did you feel that you could go out in public and say some things about us?
To say, but I don't want to say it on camera. So I'm not trying to say this on camera.
You're not hearing what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying.
I've seen stuff, and I say, brother, I'm not trying to do it. So can we agree to disagree? Can we just be brothers?
Listen, we agree to disagree all the time. I don't have a, what I'm saying to you is you can disagree with me. I don't have a, we've always had disagreements. I'm not talking about violent or angry disagreements. I'm saying things that we disagree on the study. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying when you talk about my house and the houses of people I care about,
talking about your house,
and houses of people that I care about.
Okay, so that's religion.
What happens listen to, he's not able to hear what I'm saying, and that's the problem. Without actually having been inside them and actually even look at what we're doing, that's offensive. That's offensive. That's like me telling you about where you live without having been in it.
Reggie, did you hear me last night when this dude got up there because you and Jabari was going at it, and he got up there and called in and he said something very bad about you? What did I do, Reggie? I flipped on him. Like Jabari said, you are my friend. That don't mean it's religion. You my friend. I'm not going to have him call in my show and disrespect you on the air on my show. Just because I might go at you and you might go at me, or you and Jabari might go at it, that don't mean other people could. And I checked him on that and told him. I said, bro, don't.
And I agree with that. My point is, you know, it's not something for you to speak on if you're not familiar with it, if you haven't actually seen it in action.
Okay, so, good brother, you are my brother. I know that you may be upset. You have enough skills to get over it.
That is really condescending. That is very condescending.
See, here's the thing. Your heart is so heavy. Your heart is so heavy. We go it with other groups of people. We say enormous types of things. For example, the issue that you had with Zion Lex in your house. You said something to him he found very offensive. He got very upset in a way in which you're not supposed to. And another brother you had a conversation with, and he did some, all in your house. I'm in your house.
What other brother are you talking about? Zion Lex, yeah, but who else are you talking about? Tell me later. You don't have to. Let's tell me later. Maybe you talk.
No. Prince York.
Oh
yeah.
Right.
You see,
so what's your point though? Where is he at now?
Nowhere.
Oh.
Right? So my point is, we're brothers. I have. Here's the thing. What I have done is a little bit different. You are talking for people.
I am. I'm a leader.
You're talking for people. What I do is I go
talk
and
about people.
Source. Yeah, I go.
You're not supposed to agree with that, did you? I just said you're not supposed to.
Yeah, I talk about people, but indirectly, right? Because it becomes personal. So I try to take some of it, but I didn't get away without taking out the personal, because no matter what I do, I'm accused. But religion does that, and so that's why I'm here.
Oh, come on.
So religion, because I can't say something about a temple. See, I can't even. I'd not say the word shrine. If I can't say nothing about a temple, but if I was talking about the Hebrews or the Christians or the Moors, that's all good about their practice. I debated the Moors. I learned a very valuable lesson about how to deal with things. I'm one of the only people who debated the Moorish Science Temple of America in mass. And I am very, very respected by them, right? Because I could still say things, right, where it may hurt, but it doesn't, it's not a death sentence. Now, there's some things that you say that is a death sentence in our community. So I learned not to talk about the people. I talk about what the people do or things related to the people. And that is my method. And I'll talk to Dr. Jeffries about that method. But that's my method. You may not like it because you're involved in it. But I'm sure if we were talking about the Christian church and Christian leaders, and it would be okay. It would be no problem. But this is personal to you. So You have tools.
You are misrepresenting what's happening here.
In your mind,
because first of all, what you've done is you have compared Prince York and Zion Lex to you.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did. You said you saw two people in your house, and I said some things that were anathema to them, and they got really upset and ran out. That is true that I did say some things. That
but I'm not comparing them to us. What I'm saying is how people take information. So me and you, we have we are in heavy disagreement about some things. You're upset. I'm not upset.
That's because you're the one that said some really messed up things about me.
And you said some messed up personal things about me.
Like what?
About my scholarship. Nobody uses my work. Right?
Reggie, we don't use your work.
Yes?
Huh? We don't use your work.
Okay.
So how come, why don't we do this? Look,
that's Reggie, a fact. That's
Reggie, look at the camera. Look at us. Why don't both of y'all apologize to each other for hurting each other's feelings?
No, we're not. We grown men. We're not going to apologize. What we're going to do is we're going to work through this, because the fact of the matter is I can stand what you say.
I'm not for an apology.
And neither am I. But you my brother.
But here's the deal.
But you my brother.
Here's the deal. What I want you to do, you've always been my brother. That hasn't changed.
What do you mean you want me to do? You say that so much.
What do you mean?
You want me to do. What do you want me to do?
I said I want you to do?
Yeah, that's what you said. What you want me to do? Finish your sentence.
I don't know if I said those words.
You did.
I said I'm not fishing for apology. I don't know what else I said because you interrupted me, so I didn't finish the sentence. I think that what this is probably what I was saying, because I think this is the thought. What I want you to do is recognize that.
You just said it.
Okay, so this is the thought. Here, listen. Right. What I want you to do.
Let you know that that's what you said.
You let me finish the thought, because you make me lose the thought again. You don't even know what I want you to do. I could be saying what I want him to do is take this bag of crisp 50s, but he's not letting me finish. What I want you to do is recognize that unless you have intimate knowledge of something, it's difficult for you to really critique it. And I don't think that you have intimate knowledge of the things that we're talking about. And so that's part of what the issue is. Now, you and I will continue to debate, because as long as we talk, we will. That's been the nature of our relationship. But I think that what you did in these videos was different than the debates we normally have. How am I going to leave it alone, Reggie?
You can't.
Reggie,
use the tools that you have.
Reggie, no.
Leave it alone.
That is not how this works.
Right, your heart.
That is not how this works.
You will not be my.
That is not how this works. That is not, brother. I am completely in control of myself, and I'm not responding from anger. What I'm trying to do, you haven't heard me. I didn't curse you. I'm not responding from anger. You know what I was really, Reg, you should hear this. More than anger, I was disappointed is what I was.
You don't have to be disappointed.
I was disappointed in you. I was disappointed. And you know what? For those of you who watched the video, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. This brother is trying to gaslight me. Like, he didn't say the things that he did. That what we do is fugazi. Stop it. You talking about Ankh carriers. And you know what else? If you want to dither on the word shrine or temple, that speaks to how little you know these traditions. You know, because there's a difference.
You know what I do? I go to Infadishi, Jehudimus, right? And
you go to him on the street and talk to him.
He knows some of the things he said because of some of his students called. And you know what he says? You know, he says, yeah, I heard about some of the comments about Ankh carriers and things like that. And you know what he does? He pushes it all to the side, right? And you know what he says? How can I help you, brother? You have a question? Says something that you want to discuss something? Because you know what? That did not affect him.
What? I don't even understand what you're saying.
Why don't you ever understand?
First of all, you need to understand that in your video, you said you weren't speaking about him.
It doesn't.
You didn't say that about me. It doesn't. Come on, man. Family, this brother is not. He's pretending like he didn't do this.
I did not mention Brother Jabari directly. Why do you have people?
Baba Heru.
Why do you have people in